And now, an on-air sports marketing presentation. It's Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B, now on ESPN 620, 98.7 FM HD2, and streaming live at arizonasports.com. The guys are powered by the law offices of Lerner and Rowe. In a wreck and need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And now on your ESPN station in Phoenix, ESPN 620, Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B.
With the 16th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, Mississippi.
That's right. The Arizona Cardinals get their guy, number 16. The D-backs pitching blows yet another lead end game. And in the NBA, the Knicks, Thunder, and Clippers are winners in last night's game. Welcome into Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B. Roc and Jimmy B out. Jax is alongside me as we are out here at Wright Toyota, located at 78th Street, Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard, as we pretty much get a chance to break down the draft, especially one Walter Nolan, the 16th pick out of Ole Miss. For all of you Arizona Cardinal fans, we'll get a chance to break all that down. And then Jax, initially, my guy was, we had Wolfley on yesterday talking about it. You guys heard me talk about it. I wanted to see the best offensive lineman picked. Tyler Booker gets picked by Connor's Dallas Cowboys. I forget the other top lineman that was picked as well.
Kelvin Banks Jr.
Kelvin Banks Jr. I went, damn. So who's the best available? But watching one Walter Nolan during the last couple of weeks, watching his highlights, listening to this pundit, that expert, this guy, that guy. And then it was just really odd that on Tuesday's show, we're in the studio, and Connor and all of his pundits down there at ESPN Radio 620. By the way, Connor, I got to tell you, listening to the draft show on 98.7 and then flipping over to 620, you guys did a great job with your vignettes. How much research, how many voices you guys use for all that?
Appreciate that. That was a lot of us down here with the Arizona Sports Station. I believe there was probably about a handful of 8 to 10 of us mixed together. I know we got about, I want to say, anywhere from 89 to about 110 different prospects in our database. So we were ready for whichever way the Cardinals were going, and we're excited to have those profiles. Just wanted to be a little extra, be something a part of kind of the draft show. You know, everybody has their Todd McShays, their Adam Schefters, and everything they're listening to. We like to give a little local flair out here. You
guys did a great job. By the way, if you recollect, Tuesday we were off air and we were talking about the draft, and I said, well, if they don't get their offensive lineman, well, I really like this Walter Nolan kid, and I like his movement. I like this, but he just for some reason stuck out. And then off air, what did you say, Connor? They kind of set me back, and I went back and watched a few more. What was your initial comments on that?
Yeah, so when I looked at Walter Nolan, I think this is something that Jax can also attest to here, is that this is a guy who has, without a doubt in my mind, the ability to be the most dominant defensive tackle in this draft. The difference with Walter Nolan is, can you find that motivation? Can you find that drive? Can you find a factor to where he's doing that every snap, and he's not just doing it on third downs and longs, and he's not just doing it at the beginning of a game, but he's also doing it at the end? A lot of people had questions about the character and that love for football, but to Monty Ossenfort and to Jonathan Gannon, they said that they did their homework and they feel really comfortable with this pick.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing too. The fact that they got Dalvin Tomlinson, but not only that, how about 18-year veteran Calais Campbell that plays the same position? I mean, Walter Nolan, the biggest thing with him is a character issue. I have no worry about him stepping in with what Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort have instilled in year 3. You alongside Calais Campbell, you got Dalvin Tomlinson, who's played 8 years in the league. I think it's a home run hit. You guys hammered it. This is a guy that was the number 1 recruit coming out of high school, was a dominant player at A&M, transferred to Ole Miss last year, and he was that guy. And I know people look at stats all the time, talking about 14.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks. Offensive lines had a scheme against him because he was such a run stopper and a plug up the middle. So you want to talk about an offseason for the Arizona Cardinals addressing their number 1 need, the defensive line. You go in and get Walter Nolan, a guy that they said that was number 1 on the board. And I love this quote, Manuch, from Jonathan Gannon. He said, the perfect world was getting my first car and having Walter Nolan on my team.
I love that quote. You know, he pushes the pile too. He pushes the pocket. He gets off blocks. Now, it's a whole different world when you play in the National Football League. When you're playing week in and week out with guys that are anywhere from 6'3" to 6'8", mostly interior guys, because he'll probably be that true nose guard, 3 technique guy. Now, he can play in a 5 technique, going a little wider, but he's that true tackle. He's that true 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide. He goes, 6'4", 255, 260. But I like his quickness in watching him. He may not get to the quarterback, but he certainly pushes the pile with all of the tape and footage that I've seen, getting off blocks. He's also a sure tackler. When he gets his arms or his hands on you, he's pretty good. And the other thing that was impressive in watching a lot of the highlights last night was how he gets off the guard, how when he'll loop inside or outside. What do they call it? The bend? Is that the new term now? The way he can bend, get around the edge, or get around that guard, even if he does a loop on the outside around the tackle, how he gets to the outside. But the one thing I think a lot of Cardinal fans will realize, the guy occupies space, and he's also responsible for his space. He doesn't get caught off guard a lot of times, and they've said that he's very diligent and doesn't make a lot of mental mistakes. And I think for this offense, with Rawls's defense, he's going to have to be very disciplined, understand his role, and not try to do too much with the talent that he has.
Yeah, and I think sometimes some of these teams always try to get a flyer off the wall, trying to go for someone that is either at a smaller school, and sometimes it works out. The common theme I thought last night watching the draft, 26 out of 32 picks, Big Ten SEC schools. Jonathan Gannon comes from the Eagles, a team where they draft Georgia and Alabama guys every year. I think this is a hell of a pick from Ole Miss. Walter Nolan, the pro comp from him is Ed Oliver. You see the impact that he made with the Bills. I don't see anything wrong with this. I honestly, when the pick came up, I thought it was going to be Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. Beyond surprise, and I'll throw it to you, Connor, because we were talking before this. Will Johnson, a notable guy that not a lot of people expected to fall out of the first round. Some people, including myself, were praying that the Cardinals were going to get him at 16. Obviously, you step back and you say, the NFL guys know a lot more than we do. Why do you think he fell, Connor?
Yeah, I think, when you look at Will Johnson, you have to talk about, for one, this is a guy who didn't come off of his best season. Not that he was bad, but it was somebody who, kind of what they used to say about what Richard Sherman, just wasn't really targeted a lot. So there wasn't a lot of film to work with. You look at 2023 and 24 being kind of some of those better seasons for him, or I should say the early half of 24. But this is somebody who, again, he had the turf toe last season, had the late hamstring injury into the draft process. He never ran a 40-yard dash, not only throughout the entire draft process, guys, but this is somebody who hasn't ran a 40-yard dash ever. Coming out of high school, getting recruited by Michigan, he also declined to run the 40-yard dash. This is somebody who, for his entire career at Michigan, great technique. People love the fluidity in his hips, but they did question the straight line speed. And I wonder now, with the injuries to the lower body, with him deciding not to run that 40-yard dash, are there too many question marks around the guy's lower body health and around that overall speed? Because in the NFL, you're dealing with a different type of fast-paced guy. I mean, it's a whole nother level of speed.
Not a lot of storylines going into the draft last night, but one started pretty quickly with Jacksonville. Jacksonville trading up to get the Cleveland Browns pick. And I don't know, Jax, I think they might have given away the house, the farm, the fort in order to move up and to go get Travis Hunter in that particular situation. Here's how it all went down last night in reference to getting one Travis Hunter by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
But I'm being told we have major breaking news. Adam Schefter, what do we have? All right, Selena, we have the first trade of round one. The Cleveland Browns have traded out of the second overall pick. They're moving back to number 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars spot. In return, the Browns will get the number 5 overall pick, a second round pick,
About 2 more minutes.
number 126, and the first round pick of the Jaguars in 2026. The Jaguars in turn get the number 2 pick, a 4th round pick, and a 6th round pick. The Jaguars are on the clock. The youngest general manager in the NFL, James Gladstone, at the age of 34, new regime in Jacksonville, is taking a huge swing at the second pick, and they are targeting Travis Hunter.
Was there anything left, Jax, after that trade?
I mean, you want to talk about laying the house on the line and telling Duval over there, hey, we're going to go all in, full swing, full house. I have 2 sides to this. I like the move. I like the aggressiveness from James Gladstone.
But was that an overreach?
maybe an overreach to move up 3 spots for a guy that's, I want to say, elite at both positions. He's really good at both, great at both positions. I definitely think it's going to bring a lot of eyeballs to Jacksonville. A lot of people are going to want to go see him. I saw that today he wants to wear number 40. He doesn't want to buy his number. Nick Mullins wears 12 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But what was your reaction to this? Because I thought the Browns won this trade for them to get another first-round pick. Wow. The Jaguars aren't going to be that much better next year, so that could be a top 10 pick. But a lot for a non-quarterback.
I will say this. I think that what Cleveland says that, okay, you want the pick? This is what we want. And Jacksonville took it. All right, we'll give you this. We'll give
year's
you
second round, next year's first round, a 5th-round pick. Wild. Yeah, James Gladstone, 34 years old, comes from the regime of the Rams, and he said, I know from Les Snead, F them picks, and that's what they're doing. They go and got their guy with Travis Hunter. So now you have an offense with Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor Lawrence. Maybe they can build maybe another running back or some offensive linemen to add with Travis Etienne. That offense in Jacksonville and Duval is looking better.
The other news before we go to break here is Shedeur Sanders still on the clock. Does not get picked in the first round. I've got a really funny feeling that the first pick of the second round is the Cleveland Browns. I feel that might be his next choice, but him falling out, Jack getting picked up also in the first round by the Giants. They got Abdul Carter with the 3rd pick overall. Then they get Jackson Dart late in the first round. I like both those picks, and I really believe that the Giants not taking a quarterback there, Abdul Carter, they scratch that itch, and they also scratch the itch of a quarterback in waiting when you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston as the quarterbacks for the New York Giants.
If you're the NFC East, if you are the Cowboys who picked Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama, after seeing Abdul Carter, and then you see what the Eagles were able to do and get Jahad Campbell, like the defensive line talent in the NFC East might be the best in the entire NFL. You got Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and you got Abdul Carter all on one defensive line. I agree with you, Manuch, and I feel like for the Giants to get a franchise quarterback, Jackson Dart, later in the first round, they didn't have to give up a future first-round pick. That's huge for Giants fans moving forward.
I got to give the Giants an A+ as far as their first-round picks are concerned. Coming up next, it's our replay rewind from last night's sounds from the NFL draft to the D-backs and the NBA. That's all right here on ESPN 620, 98.7 HD2, and streaming live on ArizonaSports.com as we are live at Wright Toyota.
It's Friday, and the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
Today's Replay Rewind is brought to you by Lerner and Rowe. Interact, need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And always at lernerandrowe.com. They can help. Get a free consultation. Again, one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. Well, we bring you the sounds pretty much of the NFL draft last night. We're going to focus on the Arizona Cardinals, reference to one Walter Nolen, the young man, 16th pick overall out of Ole Miss. A lot of good things to say. We'll bring that up. But this is how it all got going with the commissioner, Roger Goodell.
With the 16th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolen, defensive tackle, Mississippi.
So you hear that, Jax, you go, okay, I like that. I mean, if you couldn't get your two top offensive linemen, i.e. your guards, had no heartburn with that. I think that we talked about that last week and this week, that if they couldn't go get their outstanding offensive lineman, I'd have no heartburn at all to go get a young buck, whether it be a defensive tackle or or interior defensive lineman, a three technique guy, nose guard, whatever, from that standpoint. And they got him, and he was right there. And all the glowing reports were out there from this young man by a lot of folks.
Instead of spending $25 million, you would have spent it on Milton Williams. You get a guy that's pro-comp Milton Williams and Walter Nolen. I think it was a terrific pick by the Arizona Cardinals. I also think it's rewarding, too, when you hear from Gannon and Monty that they got the number one guy on their board, that he fell.
Here's a reaction from the number 16 pick, that being Walter Nolen.
Kind of just ready to get to work, honestly. I'm just kind of excited to get there and get started.
I know he's kind of like, wow, I'm a first round pick. The thing you think about when you first get drafted is not so much you think about the team you're going to, but it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to the NFL. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And when you talk about being drafted by a particular team, you're kind of in la la land. But I think once things settle down, I think they start to realize or take a look at who are some of the other individuals in that position. Who are some of the other guys that you're going to take a look at? Here's Nolan talking about joining that position room with all of those defensive linemen.
I can't wait. I know the competition level in the room going to be great. I know I got some good vets in front of me, so I just can't wait to get there to learn and compete.
One of the other things, and we hit on this a little bit during the week, a lot of the pundits hit on this, is maybe his love for football. Does he go full go every play? Is he one of those guys that just can't wait to wake up and get better? So I think, a lot of guys, whether you know it or not, these athletes, these coaches, players, they do read the paper. They see the social media. They see some of the comments that are out there. Here's a comment by one Walter Nolen in reference to a lot of those rumors that are out there.
Just, that I don't love football and, I'm not a good teammate and just all the negative things that people try to make come up during this process. But like I said, Cardinals took a chance on me, and I'm blessed for that. I can't wait to get there.
He seems like a guy that's quiet, reserved, and just wants to play football. Some of those guys, some of those teammates that you have that don't say a whole lot, aren't the loud mouths in the room. And maybe, during his time in Arizona for a couple of years, will start to be that leader. But I think, like I said earlier, you pair him up with Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson, I think it's a perfect fit. And a guy that maybe will be lackadaisical coming in, he'll know quickly in the NFL that it's a cutthroat league, and they have a lot of expectations for him. I just love this pick.
The one thing is they were talking about all this, and Connor and I, we all kind of conversed before the show about sound, about what we're going. And the one individual I thought of yesterday with a lot of this minutia surrounding him was when they drafted Kim Diche. What was that, 6-7 years ago? Yeah. Connor, you brought that up, and you must have been reading my mind, because I think for a lot of fans, Cardinal fans especially, they hear some of the background or alleged background.
Same college, too.
Of Walter Nolen. You said, well, a lot of folks might be thinking of Kim Diche. Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, I talk about you try not to fall into old habits and you try not to find a helmet and a name and a position and combine them all together, because it's easy to say that Mozzie Smith, for example, a guy who gets drafted out of Michigan, defensive tackle, as a one tech, doesn't pan out in the NFL. So you say, oh, maybe Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant isn't going to be that same way. But you look at the character and you look at the things you hear about these guys, and it makes you feel different. Unfortunately, some of the things that we were seeing come up there with Walter Nolen was a lot of that had similar flares to Robert Nkemdiche, right? Where there was the athleticism. He was such a good pass rusher in the SEC at that. But what you started to see was a guy, does he love football? Is he willing to get better? When he faces a little adversity and gets beat up, is he going to fight to rehab, or is he going to be someone who takes the long way around? So I think that Walter Nolen, the difference is with him, he's coming into a room that is completely established. He's going to come into a room that has guys, for one, who know what they're doing, who care about what they're doing, and are willing to make a difference. They're culture changers.
Well, let me add to that. They will hold him accountable. You've got veterans in there, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Josh Sweat. They've got guys who will hold them accountable. Every one of those guys has been coming from successful football teams. One's coming from a Super Bowl. If they see this kid or any of the young men on defense step out of line, they will definitely get in their grill. Now, when teams vet these players and they hear all this, I call background noise, you know that they're going to talk to people around them, talk to that individual. They'll do all that they can. So it's very interesting here. Here's Jonathan Gannon talking about what showed them that Nolen has that heart to play in the NFL.
Yeah, just talking to him, you feel it. I'm not going to go into our conversations that I have with players, but he's got a huge heart, Teo. He really does. And he cares about the game. He cares about his teammates. And he's very genuine. And he knows what he needs to work on to get better and hit his ceiling. And I think he's going to do everything that he can to do that.
So there you have him talking about, the talk he had, the confidence he had. But more importantly, what made him, that being Jonathan Gannon, think Nolen would be a good fit on this Cards defensive line?
I mean, the thing that stands out is violence. This is a guy who plays with a high motor all the time, and playing in college ball, it's different where there's a high volume of snaps, and for a guy to be in there and play as violently and aggressively from the first quarter through the fourth quarter.
About 3 minutes of the segment.
Just the high motor, the disruption, the violent nature, those things stand out, just the way he finishes plays.
So that was Monty Ossenfort, general manager of the Cardinals. That was last night's draft show on 98.7.
I mean, that's one thing you can't teach is effort and violence. And they're trying to grab guys like that in this locker room and in the Arizona Cardinals and try to get rid of the old narratives and the old habits in this organization. And I'm looking forward to watching Walter Nolen, Darius Robinson, Josh Sweat, and Dalvin Tomlinson alongside Calais Campbell on a defensive line. It's going to be interesting to see what they do today to capitalize on. As we talked earlier, a lot of defensive guys still on the board. That home run hitter at wide receiver can still be there because a lot of those defensive guys could go early. So I think I love what Monty's doing. I love Jonathan Gannon. I think they've got a really good approach. And for them to get, like I mentioned earlier, the number one guy on their board at 16, not have to trade up, not have to trade down to secure him. I think it was just a great draft for the Cardinals.
And then, Carl, let's skip down. Let's go to Ossenfort with his presser yesterday. This is interesting because we all talked about offensive line, and, I felt, okay, who's the best available? Well, two of the top offensive guards were gone. But here's Monty Ossenfort talking about why they went D-line when they had other needs.
You can never go wrong taking good players. Okay.
2 minutes.
And then, I think the other thing that we saw, unfortunately, we saw firsthand last year, a month into the season, and we lost 2 or 3 guys on our D line that we had counting on playing big roles. And so it's a violent position to play, the offensive and defensive line. And, we suffered attrition at both of those. So, anytime that we can add big bodies, and then add talented guys to that room, the competition is going to sort itself out, and the depth. I mean, we can never have enough of those guys.
Well, there's a former GM that had some hesitation for ESPN, that being Riddick. And I love watching his analysis and breaking down film. Well, here's the other side of a lot of teams we're cautious about with one Walter Nolen.
Yeah, that was the thing, right? And I hate saying consistency when it comes to players, right? Because not
about a minute left, about 1 minute.
See that the pendulum swings to them being much more on than they're off. Walter, when he's on, when you talk about taking gaps,
playing on the offensive side of the line of scrimmage, when they move him on stunts and he's slanting and he's running TTs inside, meaning tackles, he is disruptive as heck. But then, he'll just disappear and he'll get stuck on blocks and he's chasing the ball. If he can just smooth that out, they got a heck of a player.
I didn't think it was such an indictment that really hammered him. I think it was just kind of some observations of watching him down in and down out.
Yeah, and I think every prospects always have weaknesses to them. That's why a lot of these evaluators, Mo Kiper and Ludus Riddick, do what they do. But I think what his strengths are outweigh his weaknesses. His run defense. I'm looking at PFF, 91.6 run defense. How many times last year against a division with a lot of talented running backs? Kenneth Walker, Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams. You see a lot of runs up the middle that had to, Buda Baker or Jalen Thompson had to come in space and make some critical tackles. Now with Walter Nolan,
you guys are clear to tell us when you're ready.
Up the middle there and stop those running backs in a division that's loaded with them.
Well, coming up, we'll take a look at how the NFC West fared in yesterday's first round. As NFC West beat writer Eric Williams will join us next. But first, Jax has a Right Toyota ESPN 620 update. This is Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B, right here on ESPN 620 on FM at 98.7 HD2, plus all our shows on the Arizona Sports app, live from Right Toyota.
It's now time for your Roc Manuch with Jimmy B's Right Toyota ESPN 620 Sports Center update. I'm Jackson Groff. We've talked about it the whole show. Walter Nolan goes to the Arizona Cardinals, a defensive tackle, 6'4", 260, 296 out of Ole Miss. Nolan had 14.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks last season, and is an outstanding run defender who can win both ways. He slips blocks and gets into the backfield. The Arizona Cardinals, though, today,
30
they
seconds.
are not done. They have the 15th pick in the second round, 47th overall, as well as the third round pick, the 14th overall pick at 78. So the Arizona Cardinals kick off the third round of the draft today at 5 p.m. This ESPN 620 update is brought to you by Right Toyota. They have the right deal for everyone. Pre-owned certified vehicles
10
under
seconds.
$15,000. And their used vehicle inventory is backed with 1 year, 15,000-mile maintenance program. That's Right Toyota. Check it for yourself. Right in the corner, right on the price. Right Toyota.
Guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
With the 16th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals defensive tackle, Mississippi.
That's right. The Arizona Cardinals get their guy, number 16, Walter Nolan. Welcome back to Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B. Out here at Wright Toyota. I'm Dan Manuch alongside Jackson Groff. We got Connor back at the studio handling everything going on. Well, he's a guy that covers anything and everything NFC West and then some. He's NFC beat writer on NFL at Fox, at NFL on Fox. You can also tweet him at Eric_D_Williams. Eric Williams going to underscore the draft, if you will. E, how you doing? It's Manuch alongside Jax. So what'd you think of round one for the NFC West yesterday, aside from the Rams not having a pick?
Yeah, I just think it was one of those drafts for the NFC West where they wanted to get solid starters, just hit doubles, get a good player, and that was going to help them continue to move forward and rebuild. I think you look at what the Seahawks did, getting Gray Zabel. It was an obvious need to get an offensive lineman. They struggled with that the last couple of years, just in terms of protection up front, running the football. So they get a guy that kind of fits their scheme. They're switching to more of a zone blocking scheme, really athletic player out of North Dakota State. So that made sense for them. And I think when you look at the Niners, they obviously need a pass rush. They get that with Mikael Williams, a guy that can be a bookend for Bosa in their efforts to kind of rebuild that defense. And then obviously the Rams, they traded out of that pick, which made sense for them. They're able to get a first-round pick for next year when they might actually need to use that to get a quarterback. They're going year to year with Matthew Stafford, and they're able to get some other picks as well. And really the sweet spot of the draft is this day two coming up, second, third round. When you talk to guys that cover the league and scouts, they like a lot of the players that are going to be available coming up today. And like what the Cardinals did too with Nolan, they obviously needed interior pass rush. They brought back Calais Campbell, but to add another player that talented, that could push the pocket and help generate pass rush, I think is important for them.
Eric, when you study the NFC West during free agency, and then you look at coming into the draft, do you feel, you talked about very secure, solid picks for 3 of the 4. Did they scratch that itch to meet a lot of their needs in free agency to go and get a more stable, maybe need type players in this draft?
Well, I think when you talk to any GM, they want to kind of fill those needs in free agency as much as they can. So when they go to the draft, they can just get the best player that's available, and they don't have to push necessarily for need. But I think when you looked at Seattle, they really didn't do a lot in free agency and offensive line. So I felt like they needed to grab an offensive lineman. John Schneider's been there 14 years. I think they've drafted a first rounder in terms of offensive linemen 5 times. So they don't do it very often. They like to get playmakers in the first round, guys that either score touchdowns or take the ball away. So I think when you look at Seattle in terms of, the money they spent in free agency, Sam Darnold at quarterback, Cooper Kupp at receiver, they needed to solidify that offensive line so that their playmakers could go out there and do what they do on the field. Same with the Niners. They needed pass rush. They lost a lot of guys in free agency and moved on from guys, due to salary cap issues. And so they needed a playmaker on the edge to heat up the pass rush and to protect, young guys in their secondary. So I think it's just kind of a meeting of both of those things. You're looking for a really good player, but you're also trying to fill an obvious need in order for your team to improve.
For the 49ers at 11, Eric, was Tyler Warren an option for them? Not because of the George Kittle and the whole contract extension and the situation like that. Was that an option not to replace him, but to maybe have a backup plan because Kittle's getting older? And then my second question to you, what's the update in terms of the contract talks with George Kittle and the 49ers?
Yeah, I think Warren was an option for them, like you said, because Kittle is getting up there in age and because tight end is so important to Kyle Shanahan and what they want to do on offense. They run a lot of 12 personnel and like the multiplicity that it gives their offense. But I think when you weigh Warren and the kind of role he would play versus, getting a defensive end and what they're going to do, I think there's probably a little more contribution in terms of what you're going to get defensively from Williams. In terms of the contract status with Kittle, that's ongoing, according to their GM, Lynch, who talked this week. They're hopeful to get something done, but, that could be something that drags on. You've seen how they've handled other players in their contract situations in the past, most notably Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams last year, obviously Deebo Samuel a couple of years ago. They could get, a little ugly. And I think in terms of what's happening with San Francisco, they're hopeful that they could get something done early and this doesn't drag all the way into training camp.
Well, now that you guys open the door, how about my guy Brock Purdy? I mean, where's that standing? I know that their camp wants somewhere close to 55 plus a big guarantee. Yeah. San Fran comes out with 45. I mean, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. Where's that standing at right now? You guys started it. I got to open it up.
Well, I think it's probably in a good place. The fact that he showed up for off-season work lets you know that maybe they're kind of inching a little closer to getting something done. In my opinion, they got to pay him. Obviously there's been a lot of talk really over the last couple of years of what his value is and is he worth that kind of contract. The numbers are the numbers. I mean, he's performed amongst the top 10 quarterbacks in the league over the last 3 years. He's a great fit for that offense. He's loyal. The guys in that locker room love him. When I talk to the players and coaches from the 49ers, they speak very highly of him. It just makes too much sense for them to just go ahead and knock that out and get it done. Whatever the number is, whether it's 50, whether it's 52, I think the number's going to have a 5 on it, in my opinion. I think that's justified when you look at other guys and what they're getting paid in the league. Jared Goff is getting paid, $50-some million a year. I covered Goff when he was with the Rams. I certainly didn't expect him to be making that kind of money, at this point in his career based on how he performed there. But the bottom line is wherever you're at, you need playmakers to be successful in the NFL. Jalen Hurts went to the Super Bowl, but he didn't do it by himself, obviously. He had Saquon Barkley. He had legit receivers on the perimeter. He had one of the best offensive lines in the league, and he's making a lot of money because he directs that. It's the same with Purdy. Give him playmakers like we saw a couple years ago, a good offensive line, and he'll perform at a high level, and you need that in order to be a top-tier quarterback in this league.
Adam Schefter reported about an hour ago about Shedeur Sanders, and there was 2 teams that he linked in day 2, the second or third round, Seahawks and the Cardinals. How realistic is that? Do you think the Seahawks potentially with the whole Sam Darnold 1-year rental could look at a Shedeur? And then my second question for you, could any of these teams, any of the NFC West teams, look for a quarterback in the future to kind of, develop behind these veteran quarterbacks?
3 minutes.
Seahawks. And what was the other team?
Seahawks, Cardinals, Cowboys.
Seahawks and the
3 teams.
For Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
We did, hey, Eric, don't feel bad. We did the same thing. We went, wait a second. What? What?
That makes no sense to me for a couple different reasons. The Seahawks have drafted 2 quarterbacks since Snyder has been there. Alex Magoo, I think, in 2018, and Russell Wilson in 2012. So that's not how they use quarterbacks in. They like to either use the trade market or free agency to bring guys in. Like they've done with Sam Darnold. They went out and brought Drew Lock back in free agency. So I would be shocked if Sanders lands there. I would be shocked if he landed in Arizona as well. Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The team that I think makes sense is either the Raiders or the Steelers. I feel like those coaches have the kind of personality to deal with the kind of personality that Sanders brings to the table. It's unfortunate that he dropped out of the first round because I feel like he's a first-round talent. But I think when you're dealing with people in the league, coaches don't like distractions. And are they going to be willing to deal with the baggage versus how much talent that player brings to the table and all the other stuff that you're dealing with? I kind of compare it to Tim Tebow and what he brings. As a reporter, I'm going to want to talk to Tebow on a regular basis just because people are interested in his story and what's happening. It's the same thing when you bring in somebody like Sanders in. Even though he's going to be a backup quarterback, he's going to get a lot of media attention. And so you need the right coach with the kind of attitude and presence that's able to handle that personality. And for me, that would be, Pete Carroll.
Minute and a half.
Obviously, Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. But I think really the question is he drafted today? Does he fall to day 3? Because I think there's only a couple landing spots that really make sense for him.
Eric, got about a minute here. The running backs are in vogue. Ashton Genty going to the Raiders at number 6 and number 22. You see Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina, running back. They're back, Eric. The running backs are back in the first round.
Yeah, our guy Rob Ring, I think, had 8 running backs in his top 100 players on his draft board. So a lot of good running backs all throughout the draft. Obviously, Cam Scatabo is one of those guys, played at Arizona State. I think he's probably going to go either today or maybe early tomorrow. You know, obviously the 40 time didn't do him any favors, but he was a very productive player, runs really hard. And I think when you talk about day 2, day 3 guys, you're looking for guys that are going to come in and be solid contributors. And I think Cam kind of meets that criteria and would make sense for a team like Seattle. I think he'd make sense in San Francisco. I think he could make sense of a guy that could maybe convert and be a fullback core special teams player and earn a pretty good living as an NFL player doing that if it doesn't work as a complimentary tailback.
He's Eric Williams, NFC beat writer for @NFL at Fox. And you can also tweet him at Eric_D_Williams. Eric, we really appreciate your time. We'll be checking in maybe early next week and get a wrap on the draft in the NFC West. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
You bet. Eric is sponsored today by All City Towing. Join the team at the largest towing company in the state. All City Towing, they're hiring dispatchers, call takers, lot attendants, drivers, customer service personnel. You have great benefits like the state's most advanced towing equipment, set work schedules, a healthy 401k employer match, health benefits, employer-paid life insurance, and a monthly fuel allowance. Ready to take your career to the next level in this next year? Well, just visit them at allcitytowing.com. That's allcitytowing.com. All City Towing, where your future is on the move. Well, coming up, we'll take a look at On This Day in Football at 50 as you're listening to Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 on the FM at 98.7 HD2 as we're live from Wright Toyota.
I was in a
It's Friday, and the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
Before we get to a little on this day of football 50, let's get to our State 48 Roofing It's Your Call question of the day. State 48 Roofing, the #1 referred roofer in Arizona, proudly serving the Arizona residential and commercial markets for over a decade. For a free quote, repair, or installation, head to state48roofing.com and follow them on social media by searching hashtag #SexyRoofStatus. Okay, here you go. Just go to @Roc and Manuch on Twitter or X. The best undrafted player, not a quarterback. Okay, here's your selections. Is it Wes Welker, who was a wide receiver coming out in 2004? How about Rod Smith, the phenomenal wide receiver / Hall of Famer for the Broncos back in 1994? Or James Harrison, outside linebacker / strong safety back in 2002, or John Randall, another Hall of Famer defensive tackle back in 1990. Again, just go to @Roc and Manuch on Twitter and cast your vote. Which way would you be leaning with those four there, Jax?
I'm a little biased because I looked up to this guy growing up, Wes Welker.
Oh, yeah.
Wide receiver. I forget what college he went to. Oh my goodness! I think it was it a Max? I think it was a Max school.
I remember watching Welker or playing
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
Never mind.
Yeah, playing. Watching him over the years and just seeing how. I believe he was didn't he start off as a quarterback at Texas Tech?
Julian Edelman out of Kent State.
And I think Walker. I for some reason I thought he did as well too. But there you go. Just go to @Roc and Manuch on Twitter and cast your vote. All right, going back to April 25th. This day back in 1978. The Philly Fanatic makes his first appearance. Now, prior to that, you had the San Diego Chicken, which was kind of the inroads to that. But before that, you had the Phoenix Gorilla, who made his inroads at a lot of the Phoenix Suns teams. And how that started is there was a flower company that would deliver flowers to people all around town. And this particular individual, I forget his name, would dress up as a gorilla and go do the floral arrangements to around town. Well, this particular instance, he's dressed up as a gorilla. He's delivering flowers to a gal there, I believe, in the front row of the game. He came in, the fans applauded, he kind of worked the crowd, and the rest was history. That's how the gorilla got started with the Phoenix Suns. 1993, the NFL draft. Washington State quarterback Drew Bledsoe was first picked by the New England Patriots. 2009, in the NFL draft, Georgia quarterback Matthew Stafford, the first pick by the Lions in 2013. Central Michigan offensive tackle Eric Fisher was the first pick by the Chiefs. Also, and in 2019, Oklahoma quarterback, we were there, Kyler Murray, the #1 pick by the Arizona Cardinals, as that was in Nashville, Tennessee. We were there doing the radio show for another network. What a blast that was to have some 250,000 people on Broadway there, Jax. Very well behaved to have that stage there. And where all the radio shows was in that convention center that was attached to where the stage was. So we were all there. And then when they got picked, they would come over to the room. And we'd go back there, and we would watch the interviews or we would talk about it. The first thing Rock and I, we looked at each other and went, damn, he's short. I mean, 5'10", maybe with platform shoes on. But that was the first thing we looked at. He had his pink outfit on, the white tie. He looked good, but I just was like, this kid's maybe 5'8" with this platform.
On the broadcast last night, a lot of people were vying for them to go back to Nashville. I was impressed with the amount of people there at Green Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently today the weather's supposed to be worse. The second, third round, I anticipate probably at least over 100,000 people will be there. 4 through 7 could get a little suspect. Detroit was phenomenal last year when they had the draft there, but what a moment last night. Matthew Golden gets selected. They haven't picked a wide receiver since 2002. And all the 250,000 fans just screaming for Matthew Golden, we're the old gold. What a moment.
And how appropriate an ex-Packer James Jones is on the dais as well, too. Hey, on this day is brought to you by Vans Golf Shops in Arizona, serving golfers since 1963. Their unprecedented service, exclusive 90-day satisfaction guarantee, and custom club fitting is the cornerstone of their business that made them the proven leader in golf retail throughout the Southwest. Head to worldwidegolfshops.com. That's worldwidegolfshops.com for a location nearest you. All right, Connor, give us a little football at 50 love.
Oh, Jim, my name is Jackson. Nice to meet you. Football at 50, the 10 best undrafted players in NFL history. Now, a list was assembled for NFL players that went undrafted. We're going to go from 10 to 1 to build up the anticipation. Some names are familiar in the Valley of Arizona. At number 10, Dick Night Train Lane. Did you watch him when he played?
I knew a little bit before my time. I saw the black and white highlights. Now, Jimmy B might have broadcasted some of those Night Train Lane things.
At number 9, one of the greatest kickers of all time, Adam Vinatieri. At number 8, Tony Romo out of Eastern Illinois. 7, Priest Holmes. 6, Rod Smith. 5, John Randall. 4, James Harrison. 3, Antonio Gates. 2, Warren Moon, which, by the way, did you see that video at Cam Ward's press conference earlier today? The retired number 1, he is allowing Cam Ward to wear that number. I thought it was pretty cool. He walked out and surprised Cam Ward with the number 1 jersey. So Cam Ward, they're going to unretire Warren Moon's number so Cam Ward can wear it. Your thoughts?
I love that. I love that because Warren Moon, he came out of Washington, one of the top quarterbacks, but he had to go to Canada for 5 years. He won 5 Grey Cups before he finally came down and played for them, the Houston Oilers. Eventually became the Tennessee Titans. So I thought that was a great gesture by Warren to go, you know what? It's time we retire that number 1 who was part of that. And number 1 is
the grocery store's finest, Kurt Warner, Super Bowl champ, 2-time MVP. Obviously what he was doing in the Valley and transforming the Arizona Cardinals took him to their first Super Bowl. Deservingly so. I mean, you could talk about his story all day long. It's crazy when you look at some of these people that are still trying to make it to the NFL, and it's just like you got to keep going for guys like Kurt Warner and what he went through, going to Northern Iowa, going to the Arena League, and then the grocery store, and the rest is history. What were your thoughts? Because you lived in the moment when Kurt Warner was going through this. What was your immediate reaction when you heard him go back to the NFL from the AFL and the whole grocery store?
Well, we did a couple broadcasts, myself and Trey Bender. We're doing, was it Trey or it might have been Trey Bender. We're doing the Rattler games. So he was playing for the Iowa Barnstormers at the time. So we did a couple of Barnstormer Arizona Rattler games. And I remember watching, wow, this Warner guy, he throws pretty good ball. He's accurate. He's on time. And I think they beat the Rattlers one year, and then the next year the Rattlers beat them. And then I saw him moved on to go work with Green Bay. Got cut. Then he went over to the World League over in Europe and played, got a lot of reps. Then he came back, and I didn't realize he'd come back with the Rams. He's just kind of lost track of them. They went to the St. Louis Rams. Then all of a sudden you see he's a backup quarterback to Trent Green. Green goes down. Kurt comes in and bap, 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 bap. He's running Mike Mart's offense to an all-new level. And not that Trent Green didn't do it, but he was running it. And you had Dick Vermeil was head coach, Mike Mart's offensive coordinator. You just go, wow. I remember that guy when he was with the Iowa Barnstormers.
Let me ask you, in today's NFL and today's quarterbacks, do you think we'll ever see that again, whether an Arena Football League quarterback that is in the league right now goes to the NFL, or do you think it's one of those things where he's got to go Arena to the UFL to the NFL?
It's so antiquated right now. I mean, I think of Bryce Perkins playing with the Rams as a free agent for a couple of years. Now he's making his way back to the UFL, the Michigan Panthers. By the way, second week in a row, he's named the UFL Player of the Week. So I don't know if the Indoor League or Arena League will ever see that again. But if it's a UFL guy trying to get back into
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Or maybe it's a guy coming out of college that wasn't drafted. But I got to believe those are going to be few and far between as far as a Kurt Warner-like guy going Indoor Football League and going to the National Football League.
Yeah, I root for a guy like Dalton Snead. I mean, obviously I've played with
Love to see Dalton do
it. His similar leadership style, the ability to do anything, he kind of reminds me of, like, I know it's kind of big names are thrown out there, but like a Drew Brees or like a Kurt Warner, and his leadership and his just competitiveness, that's a guy to me. And, you know, obviously he's doing his thing at the Rattlers, and they've obviously given him a great deal, and he's doing great stuff for the Valley. That's one guy to me I would love to see make his way back to the NFL and get an opportunity, because if you remember, the CFL, he had an opportunity. I'm sure you know this too.
Sure.
During COVID, unfortunately, wasn't able to get an opportunity with the CFL, but he's killing it with the Rattlers, so we'll see what happens there.
Got to look at a couple of things. So you talked about the attendance last night. They reached 205,000. So that's coming from the NFL numbers. By the way, how do they count those people? They got the clicker going strong or something like that?
Maybe they scan the tickets and that gives them the clicker. I don't know.
Yeah, 205,000. Last year, Detroit saw 275,000. As we mentioned, for a second year, It's you look at the
50 seconds,
attendance,
50
look at all the
seconds.
things going. I think in Nashville, I said what 250,000.
There's probably more than 275.
Oh, I'm definitely sure that there were. So I think those are some of the things. So Football 50 brought to you by Twin Peaks, with 5 value locations. Twin Peaks eats, drinks, and scenic views. Well, coming up in hour number 2,
30 seconds.
catch up with former Sun Devil, Cardinals, and Broncos quarterback Jake Plummer and sports handicapper Scott Spreitzer of DocSports.com. That's all next on Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 98.7 AT2 live from Wright Toyota.
It's Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B now on ESPN 620, 98.7 FM HD2, and streaming live at ArizonaSports.com. The guys are powered by the law offices of Lerner and Rowe. In a wreck and need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And now on your ESPN station in Phoenix, ESPN 620.
Got Jake on the line.
Jimmy B.
Come on. With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select
And we got Jake there, so he's good to go.
quarterback, Miami.
Welcome back to Roc and Manuch. Jimmy B, Dan Manuch alongside Jackson Groff out here at Right Theater. There was the first selection of the 2025 draft, that being one Cam Ward. Well, a guy that was picked in the second round by the Arizona Cardinals going way back to 1997. Great career at Arizona State University. Great career with the Cardinals and Denver Broncos. That being one Jake Plummer, now joining us here on the Right Theater guest side. Jake, it's Manuch alongside Jax. Can you recollect where Jake Plummer was and when you got that call from the Cardinals as that second round pick go way back to 1997?
Yes, of course. And it's good talking to you guys. I appreciate you reaching out. I always, it is a real thrill to watch. I did actually watch a little bit of the draft yesterday to see the emotions of some of these young men that are, right there. This is their dream, and now they've just been selected. Doesn't mean it's happening, 100%, but they're now getting their opportunity to go to the top level. And what a thrill for the kids, their families, everybody involved. And I can remember exactly where I was. I was at, I believe, the Phoenician or the Biltmore, I think the Biltmore. And we had a room. Lee Steinberg was my agent. He was representing me, and then Derek Rogers and Juan Roque. And Dave Dunn was there, and I played golf that morning because I knew I wasn't going to be a first rounder when they used to have 15 minutes on the clock for each team. It takes a while. And I was tired. I'd been having fun with my family, and I was like, I'm going to go lay down for a little bit. So I went and laid down and got tapped on the shoulder, woke up, and Dave Dunn said, "Hey, man, you're an Arizona Cardinal." So that's when I wiped the slobber away and said, "All right, right on, cool."
Jake, it's interesting. A lot of guys ask me, they're like, "Dan, did you know if Buffalo was going to pick you?" When I thought back on the workouts, the All-Star game, the Olympia Challenge Bowl, we had the Pac-10 versus the Big 8 All-Stars. I thought back, they were probably the most intriguing. They asked me the most questions. They worked me out the most, but I never thought that would lead to it. Did you feel the Cardinals would be the ones choosing you? Did you have any inclination at all?
None at all. Nope. I the combine and the interviews, I don't recall every team that I talked with. I know I had a lot of interviews, and I just, I carried myself post Rose Bowl. I think back to how almost insane it was that, I was one of the top quarterbacks coming out in the draft, but I still went and played at the Shrine, played at the Senior Bowl, put my body into these positions that, these kids nowadays, they pull themselves out of their team that they've been with for years or maybe a year. If it's a bowl game and it isn't worth it, to save their bodies for the league. And so I was just wanting to really put out who I was, what I was about as a leader, a player, and I love the game. And I think that really helped me actually playing in those. And the Cardinals were not on my radar at all. Little did I know I had a little bird back, down there in Tempe off of Warner, Larry Centers. That was, he was probably my biggest fan on the Cardinals, because I know when they drafted me and I met him the first time, he told me, he's like, I'm glad they drafted you, man. I wanted you here. And, knowing that and feeling that love, and obviously, the ability to stay there in town with already a fan base that was willing to watch me progress at the next level, as they watched me at ASU go from a freshman to a sophomore, junior, and whoa, this is the final year, this team that's established here, and me as the leader and the things we did as a team. I think they were excited to see what could happen. And I was too, to see what we could do, with the Cardinals, a team that hadn't done a lot in the Valley. They hadn't been to the playoffs yet since they'd come to the Valley. And I hadn't won a playoff game in 49 years. And, the rest is history, of course, but getting that opportunity, I just wanted that. I didn't care if the team was a bird or an animal or something else. I just wanted to be in an NFL team, on a team, in the locker room with the ball in my hand, with an opportunity to hopefully get out on the field and play.
What was your initial reaction, Jake, when you saw the Arizona Cardinals draft Walter Nolan, a guy that played in the SEC, defensive tackle? What was your initial reaction when you saw the selection at 16?
I didn't think much. I haven't watched that kid play. Obviously, if you're an NFL organization at this point, doing the math and looking at a lot of this that's happening with the expansion and growth of the NFL, close to being a $25 billion a year business is what I think. If my buddy and I, we've done some calculations and correct, they do their research. So the kid obviously is going to be an impact player. And this day and age with the amount of passing, if you can make it uncomfortable for even the best passers, as we've seen with, even Mahomes, when he's not comfortable back there, it gets a little more difficult for him. So having a guy coming off the end, if he's worth it to be that high of a pick, I'm sure they made a good decision and it can help their defense. As a quarterback myself, I never was upset by them drafting defense because a good defense gets me the ball back. A good defense allows me to play a little more carefree, a little more reckless at times, knowing like, oh man, I threw a pick. That's okay. My D's going to get it back. So having a great defense can definitely unleash the potential in a quarterback and an offense, and even just in a team. They say it, defense wins championships. So hopefully it's a good pick. If the kid has the drive, desire, and heart, and the effort involved to be a good player, then hopefully he turns out to be a good pick for the Cardinals.
Jake Plummer joining us here on the right to the guest line. Jake, you see Cam Ward is the first pick of the draft, and then Jackson Dart gets picked late in the first round. But a guy you've watched the last couple of years up there in Denver and Boulder area, Shedeur Sanders, he's fallen out of the first round. I think he may get picked here by Cleveland here in the first pick of the second round or maybe the third pick. But when you watched his game and figure out why he might have dropped, but just his game overall, what impressed you about watching Shedeur Sanders, and what do you think may have held him up from going in the first round?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, there's been a tendency for NFL teams to overdraft at the quarterback position, not wanting to miss out on a certain player. This year's draft, of course, is not stacked like last year's was with the potential and the candidates. Although we were being told, and the narrative was such that Shedeur was that guy and going to be a top pick. How much of that was actually coming from the brass and the people making the decisions, you don't know. Today's athletes, a lot of it is about self-promotion. So what he's done really well is make people aware of who he is. His skill set on the field, I know that is not.
2 more minutes.
And if you know the game, that's huge, because knowledge of offense, knowledge of reads and progressions and protections is paramount at the next level. So he's got to jump on that, being, that his dad has been coaching. He's been right there in it. The stock that he's coming from, one of the greatest athletes to ever step on the planet, in Deion Sanders. He's got abilities. I don't know about as far as like arm strength, but I'm not sure that, Josh Allen's are rare these days. Guys and Aaron Rodgers that can just fling it wherever. Being on time and knowing offense and knowing progressions and being able to anticipate, if he can get that part down, I see him having a decent career. He can throw the ball anywhere. He can move in the pocket. He isn't as athletic as you would think, making plays out of the pocket. But I think he's got the ability to play at the next level. And obviously we'll see. It's hard when you go to a team that may be struggling.
Time for one more.
And I think that's an epidemic of the QB overdraft syndrome that happens, where these teams that perennially are tough, like don't make the playoffs, they draft in the top 15. They waste a pick on a possible good QB candidate instead of getting a gangbuster, badass, potential all-pro defensive end that's going to get 15 sacks a season day one. Then they're stuck there again the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year, while the Kansas Cities and the Broncos and the perennial teams that win all the time, they get to draft whatever best players available. They don't got to worry about it because they got their guy at QB. So I don't know what's going to happen with Shedeur. I think, he's got faith in himself. He's got a dad that is phenomenal human being that can push belief beyond the limits for these young men, which is awesome to watch. I wish him well at the next level. It's the crazy thing, guys, is that he's coming in to the league multi-millionaires. It's not like you're coming off of
No
scholarship
kidding.
checks and like hoping to get some food. And like when I did my first signing,
Clear to rep.
$8,000 and was just, I was hyped. I had $8,000 at the bank. I had my buddies, hey, let's go get some cash at the ATM. Like, look, I got 7,200 now. Where are we going tonight? Like these guys are millionaires.
Yes.
They're coming out already claiming themselves as legendary and this, that, and the other. And it's just like the game has changed. You come out with certain attitudes back in the day, you're going to get your ass sat down by these veterans. That was just how it was. And I don't know if that's going on so much now. Is that a good thing? It may be a good thing. Hey, you're Rook, come in. How can you help us? Instead of us, hazing you and putting you down and making life hard on you, how can you get on the field now, immediately, and help this team win a championship? That's really a cool progression if you think about it.
Real quick, Jake, we got about a minute left. Do you anticipate Cam Scottaboo's name getting called tonight?
Oh my goodness! If it doesn't, then there's something wrong with the NFL. This kid can play. I don't think the Cardinals need a running back.
Man,
the Denver Broncos, it could use a running back. And I know the Cards, I think, are a few picks before the Bronx in the second round. I'm hoping that the Broncos swoop him up. And I think if the Cardinals could, they'd be foolish not to get him. I think he's a tone setter that is a rare, comes around once in a while, that, whatever he's doing, his level is such that it's contagious. You can't help but go and get it done. And he can catch, he can block, and he can run. And I'm hoping he lands at the right team that can utilize his skill set.
Hey, before I let you go, just real quick, give us that site for Umbo, all the great stuff you've got, the great products, and what's the special for the weekend. So lay that out there for our listeners real quick there, Jake.
Yeah, go to getumbo.com, join up, and get our newsletter. We got good stuff coming out, information about how this can help you, whether you're active or wanting to get active. This is we've formulated these mushrooms and these products to help people get out and get up on their feet and get moving again and feel good. So check us out. If you subscribe, there's a discount. And that's what we're doing, man. Just trying to help people reach their potential. And I'm excited, for these young men to get to go try to achieve their dream at the next level. It's always kind of rekindles. It's been 28 years since I got drafted. Like, man. Holy smokes.
I got to tell you what, hey, 50 years old now, Jake. You look good for an old man. I got to tell you what, man, all the umbo and all the activity. Hey, always a pleasure to have you. I really appreciate it. We will talk to you soon.
Awesome. You guys have a great day. Thanks for having me on the show.
So that's the great Jake Plummer. You can tweet him at Jake Snakes on Twitter. Well, coming up, we'll take a look at the Cardinals' first-round pick in Walter Nolan. And where do the Cardinals go next with the 15th pick in the second round? That's all next on Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 and 98.7 HD2 from Wright Toyota.
It's Friday, and the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
With the 16th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona
Do you want me to go right to the analysis after this?
Nolan.
I'll set you.
Defense,
Okay.
Mississippi.
I got to love that. There it is, a 16th pick. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss getting picked by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I got to tell you what, very impressive last night. Listened to the draft show last night on 98.7. They got flipped over to ESPN 620. By the way, Connor, you guys did an outstanding job as far as the analysis of all the picks, not only that were called throughout the entire draft. You guys did a great job, but this one in particular, let's just go to it. Right as soon as he was drafted, fine guys at 98.7 had this to say about one Walter Nolan.
Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, Ole Miss.
Scouts say Nolan will be a contributor right away in the NFL. Even at his size, he's very quick. The former five-star recruit has great hands and can stun offensive linemen. Nolan has some trouble with run defense, which could be seen as an issue at his position. But with his power, that is something that can be fixed with some coaching. When his moves
Jeremy Schnell did this.
counter the offensive lineman. He is versatile, though. He can be used anywhere on the line. He finished last season with 6.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss. NFL comp, Buffalo Bills defensive tackle, Ed Oliver.
Thank you, Jeremy Schnell. Ed Oliver, the comp there, as you guys did a great job with all of those throughout the entire. By the way, Connor, how many of those did you guys actually put in the can before the draft?
Let's see. I know we did each about probably 8 to 10. So we got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of us. Oh, man, we're probably pushing anywhere from almost, I want to say 90 to about 120 prospects in total.
That was interesting, Jeremy, talking about Ed Oliver. Well, I mean, what a comp when you think of something like that. And Ed Oliver with the Buffalo Bills. But Jax, you followed a lot of college football last year, as you do every year, and watching Ole Miss. I mean, I was aware of Walter Nolan during the season, but when they really break these first-round draft picks down, it's fun to watch them, ESPN, NFL Network, whomever, breaking a lot of these guys down. You watching him overall through the season, how do you think his game will resonate in the National Football League?
I think it will well for an organization that bolstered the defensive line. Now they're going to have depth where he won't have to play every single snap, where they can rotate guys into two groups. And you know how exhausting the defensive line position is, let alone the defensive tackle. I think part of that had to do with some of the inconsistencies in effort was him just being exhausted. The defense had a lot of time because the Ole Miss offense would have about two explosive plays and score. And next thing you know, the defense is on the field for about 6 to 7 minutes. So I like this fit. I think him with Calais Campbell, a guy that, quote, has character issues with Walter Nolan, I think that's going to be fixed with the culture instilled and with a guy like Calais Campbell. That will be, I guaranteed his locker will be next to Walter Nolan.
I'm sure.
Calais Campbell.
I'm sure that there'll be a lot of accountability with a rookie like that coming in and making sure he brings the donuts every Monday morning, bright and early.
Yeah.
He gets the cars washed.
I just don't
he gets the laundry picked up.
I don't think you can get wrong with an SEC defensive line.
No,
especially a guy that had 6.5 sacks. We saw how bad the defensive line was last year for the Arizona Cardinals. I think the highest sack leader was 3 sacks the entire season. I think Walter Nolan's going to exceed that next year. Then on top of that, you add Darius Robinson, the guy that you had last year, to pair up alongside of him. I think it's a hell of a fit.
I think it's a great comp for you about SEC defensive line. How about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah.
How about that defensive line? How about that offensive line? Okay, our resident actual offensive tackle one Connor Collins, who played in Division I football. How do you look at blocking a guy or seeing a guy like this?
Yeah, so a guy like Walter Nolan, that's somebody for as big as he is, he actually truly is quite versatile. I mean, the amount of snaps that he's lined up, not only just in the A gap, B gap, but also out on the edge, on a tackle, or just outside of him, it really goes to show that this is somebody who has no issue being moved around the defensive line. And I think that gives you just enough kind of flexibility when you talk about guys like Calais Campbell, Zadarius Robinson, and some of these other guys on that defensive line. It gives you a place to fit him in. But as an offensive lineman, if I'm trying to block somebody like that, I need to think about, for one, where is he? Who is he lined up on against? And what kind of play are we running? Are we running a pass? Are we running a run? Because if it's a pass, I need to have my anchor ready. I need to know that this guy is a strong SOB. And if he comes charging up the middle, I got to be ready to drop that anchor. And if it's a run, I got to be ready to lower my shoulder, create some type of combo or duo block, because it's hard to move him one-on-one.
You know, you think of true nose guards or three technique guys. One of the greatest of all time, I can go way back and think of several that come to mind. My good buddy Freddie Smirlis, playing many, many years ago. Curly Culp, former Sun Devil, a Hall of Famer, great one. But one of those is also Aaron Donald. Here's Walter Nolen talking about comparing himself to Aaron Donald.
Really, I say Aaron Donald just because, we kind of deal with some of the same things, on a personal level, and I feel like we kind of got this same mentality when it comes to D-line. And, I feel like everybody in the crowd, I'm probably the most closest to him. And really, I just can't wait to get out there and, hopefully do better than what he did. He set the bar pretty high.
Boy, did he ever. I mean, that's some pretty strong statement. You set the bar high to try to compare yourself to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was just a dude for so many years, even to the year he retired.
3 minutes.
He was still at his very, very peak of his playing days. Here's also Walter Nolen talking about how he's a unicorn when it comes to football.
I just say I'm a unicorn, just to kind of sum it up. I can do whatever for you, and in any given situation, just as long as I get the right coaching, and I can take it from there.
If he does get the right coaching, they'll be able to utilize him. You think of Coach Wallace as a defensive coordinator. Where will he play him? Will he play him with three technique? Will he play him outside? Will he play him inside? Will he have him stunt and loop? Well, that was one of the questions for Jonathan Gannon, the head coach.
2 minutes.
He talks about if he envisions Nolen as a three technique guy from the get-go.
You guys will love meeting him. He's got a quiet confidence about him. That's loud confidence, but he's where I was just talking with Mark. He's different from the guys that we've taken in the first round since we've been here. He's quiet. You got to get to know him. He's a little shy at times. And then, our scouts would be like, you should go to this practice and see what it looks like. And then you turn on a game tape and you see what it looks like. And you're like, wow, you might think one thing of the personality. And it's a little bit different. But like I said, why he fits as a Cardinal, he's got a huge heart. He cares about his teammates and he wants to maximize himself. And when you show us that from all our different ways that we find that information, sign him up.
And then you look at the national perspective, Jack. I think some of the things that sometimes you get insulated. You can hear the pros and cons. For a lot of guys that have played the position or have seen players like this, it's always interesting to get their perspective. Here's Booger McFarland on the ESPN Draft Show talking about one Walter Nolen.
And I think the Calais Campbell part is really necessary because Walter Nolen can be as good as he wants to be. He can be dominant, Greeny. He has multiple position versatility, and I line him up at three techniques because a guy like this has to get vertical, that can hit gaps and get to the quarterback. When you pick a defensive tackle this high, you're expecting impact play, not just tackles for losses. You want sacks, you want cause fumble. He's the twitchiest defensive tackle in the draft. He's got that, he can get upfield and get around the offensive guards and get to the quarterback. My only problem with it is I didn't see it consistently enough. He was a 5-star. He was the number one recruit coming out of high school. He's been the guy for a long time. He's worn that burden. So now as he takes it to the next level, can we get the fries out of him? Can we get the sacks? Can we get the production? That's what I want to see.
So what do you take out of that, Jax? The pros and cons of what Booger McFarland saw?
When he said the twitchiness, I agree with him there because I think if you have a defensive tackle that's super twitchy inside, I just think about if you can reach Walter Nolen, not saying that year one, like we saw Marvin Harrison Jr. have a little down year, getting adjusted to the NFL, but you wonder how offensive lines are going to adjust when you have him in the middle with Dalvin Tomlinson and you got Josh Sweat. You saw what Josh Sweat could do with a dominant force in the middle with Milton Williams. You hope the same with Walter Nolen. A quick stat for you, Manuch. 32 tackles last year, 2 yards within the line of scrimmage.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
He's a sure tackler.
Amazing. A great tackler. If they can just get his technique a little better, and a guy like Calais Campbell, I looked up the greatest Cardinals defensive tackles. The number one was Calais Campbell. For him to work, I know I keep repeating that on the show, but that's such a big deal for the Arizona Cardinals to have that timing with Walter Nolan.
Coming up next, we catch up with sports handicapper Scott Spreitzer of DocSports.com. But first, Connor has a Wright Toyota ESPN 620 update. This is Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 on FM at 98.7 HD2, plus all of our shows on the Arizona Sports app as we are live from Wright Toyota.
It's now time for your Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B's White Toyota ESPN 620 update. I'm Connor Collins. Last
Sports gamblers, Scott Spreitzer, one of the leaders and most trusted names in the country. Nobody watches and studies games more than he does. From DocSports.com, here's Scott Spreitzer, exclusively on with Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620.
That's right. Scott Spreitzer of DocSports.com joins us here on the right. To guess they can also tweet him at Scott Wins. Well, Scott, before we talk a little NBA sports handicapping, what was Vegas like first round of the draft, or what's Vegas like for the second, third round tonight? Is there still that buzz of folks coming into Vegas and, I don't know, betting on whatever props and who's going here and who's going there?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit less than we've seen the last couple of years yesterday. And it was, because there weren't any real, it wasn't a deep draft. There were a couple of guys who were kind of at an elite level, Cam Ward. But, it's funny when you listen to people analyzing the draft and they said if Cam Ward would have come out last year, he probably would have been like the third quarterback taken. So it was just kind of people were interested, but not at the level they were last year. And I'm betting that, maybe 1% of the books will be following the draft tonight as far as the people in the books for the second round. So, yeah, it was a trade down draft. I thought, Jacksonville gave up too much. As much as I like Travis Hunter, and he might be the best football player in the draft, but I thought the Jags gave up too much. I mean, Cleveland is, wow. They're going to have a couple potential first 10 picks next year, including a quarterback in a much better quarterback draft next year. So, but anyway, yeah, I was like, even myself, I mean, I had 2 bets the entire draft. That was it, and decided to take the rest of the draft off.
What do you make of the sports books kind of pushing out the NFL draft? I know you probably don't bet on it itself, but even like a guy like Ashton Genty, it's funny, the sports books, do they know inside the draft rooms, or how does that work? Because like a guy like Ashton Genty, for example, was favored to be with the Raiders until earlier this week, where all of a sudden the Jaguars were favored and the Raiders went to like plus 650, ends up going to the Raiders anyways. What do you make of the whole NFL draft betting field as a whole for sportsbooks?
I thought that just to be candid, guys, I thought this year was a crapshoot outside of the top 2 picks. And then the second pick didn't even go the way they thought it was going to go. And so, yeah, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, we had heard all along, being here in Las Vegas, that, it's Ashton Genty. I mean, from day one. And then, like you said, all of a sudden, 6 days ago, they started putting out rumors that they were looking at, an alignment. And so then all of a sudden the odds change a little bit. And I got to tell you, man, I just stayed away from it for the most part. I watched the entire draft last night, but I watched it as an NFL fan and taking notes and all that kind of stuff because I just thought it was like, I think you have probably a better chance of closing your eyes in a dark room that you've never been in before and find your way out than you did in naming that draft last night, that mock draft. And then you got such a situation like, a lot of people were betting on or against Shadur. I mean, nobody really had him slipping out of the first round, and so it was just a weird draft. I would think that next year, for me, just seeing the potential for a really good draft and a deep draft next year, kind of like last year and the year before, I'll be involved probably maybe 6 or 7 bets, but just kind of stayed away from it this year. And I think the books were just hoping not to get beat, and it was like going to take luck to beat them.
He's Scott Spreitzer, DocSports.com. You can also tweet him at Scott Wins. Okay, well, our resident gambler here, Jax, is waiting with bated breath on your breakdowns of the NBA. So let's take a look at this weekend's game. Let's start with the Celtics. Last time I looked, minus 4.5 at the Magic. Where does that stand right now? Is there any chance the Magic can make a run to come back against the Celtics?
Well, I'll tell you what, if we would have jumped on this 20 minutes ago, just 20 minutes ago, I would have told you that the Celtics were 3.5. The total was 196.5, and that Jaylen Brown was questionable and Jason Tatum was doubtful. 20 minutes ago, guys, in the last 20 minutes, the Celtics have gone from 3.5 to 5.5. The total went from 196.5 to 199.5. Huge move. So, of course, right away you jump in and you see, oh, Jason Tatum has been upgraded from doubtful to questionable. He's probably going to play. Earlier today, I was thinking, boy, it looks like Boston, this might be punting for them this game to make sure everybody's healthy. Brown, Tatum, Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's also listed as questionable. And so that line started coming down, and it's almost like a head fake on Jason Tatum because now I think he's going to play. If you get upgraded day of the game from doubtful to questionable, you're likely going to play. So, you look at, Banchero, you look at Wagner, and these guys are tearing it up, 59 and 57 points combined through the first 2 games against the Boston Celtics. Orlando's played them pretty tough. That wasn't a bad effort the other night. The first game was closer than the final score would indicate. I think 5.5, 6. I think they could hang this number tonight. And it's not a game that I'm jumping on to bet, but the Magic have not lost a playoff game in their last 3 at home. And I think they'll give the Celtics a little run for their money tonight, guys.
Game 3 tonight, Pacers at Bucks. Bucks favored by 5.5. Pacers have a 2-0 lead. What do you see in this one? Is the 5.5 leading to potential Dame Lillard return? Or what are your sources and insight on this game?
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee's in that virtual must-win spot. That doesn't always equate will win, but I think 5.5 is fair if you like the Bucks in Game 3. They fought hard in Game 2. They came back. They were within a bucket before the Pacers closed on an 8-2 run. And, Damian Lillard, he was rusty. He came back in that game. He's rusty. He made 4 of 13 shots, 2 of 8 3-pointers. So now he's got his legs under him, and I think he'll be a difference maker tonight, if you will, for the Bucks in this game. I do like Milwaukee minus the points. And, guys, one more quick play from this game. Andrew Nembhard is over-under for points, assists, and rebounds combined is 19.5 minus $1.05. And I think Nembhard will go over that 19.5. He's the top plus-minus guy for the Pacers in this series thus far. Played 34 minutes in Game 2. I think he goes over that 19.5.
Hey, Scott Spreitzer at DocSports.com and at Scott Wins. All right, the Lakers at the Timberwolves now, and I did this late last night, and, we go back and forth late at night because you're up till our hours of the night, Scott. It was at 2.5. Now it's at minus 3.5 Minnesota. When did that change?
Yeah, that kind of changed early this morning, and it's the 3.5 ever since then. I mean, I was up till 4 a.m. last night, Pacific time and Mountain time, and written any poetry lately, so just throwing that out there. But anyway, yeah, I mean, listen, the Lakers are having a horrible time from the offensive perimeter. Minnesota is playing a stingy brand of defense. Their length seems to be bothering Los Angeles when they play well. Having said that, there's also been inconsistencies, one of which was the Minnesota bench, which I have no doubt about that in this game. I do believe that. Bench, and I think the T-Wolves starters and bench are going to bounce back with a much better offensive effort tonight. I also like not only Minnesota here, but how about this, guys? LeBron James over-under for points is 22.5 minus $1.20. LeBron James has been so-so on offense by his normal standards thus far. He hasn't hoisted a lot of shots. He hasn't been making a lot of threes, but James normally feels the need in Game 3s of playoff series. So I thought 22.5 was a little short, and I played.
All right, Scott, the next game here, Rockets at Warriors. Warriors are minus 2.5 point favorite as of I'm looking right now. They are a 3-point favorite. The Warriors at home in Game 3. Where do you see this one going?
Looks like it dropped on us. Oh, it dropped.
It sounded like they started to go into the Rockets Golden State game.
Perfect. So I'll pick up for them. We'll look at that. Is at 2.5, and obviously all those questions right now are surrounding Jimmy Butler with the pelvic contusion, I think is what they came out saying.
Yeah, and he's still listed as questionable, and if he's far from 100%, or if he doesn't go in this game, I think
are you guys back?
A whole lot of
back. Okay.
Series. He only played about 7 minutes and 50.
I kept Scott.
Before he got hurt. The offense was dead in the water afterwards. You had Curry only scoring 20 because the Rockets can focus on him, send their best defenders at him. Their next highest scorers were Moses Moody and Quentin Post, 12 points.
I'll make your guys' mics hot here.
Has fallen out of favor with Kerr, forced into action. I don't like that situation. He's going to shoot the ball too much. So it's Houston for me in this one, thinking that Jimmy Butler is going to be far from healthy.
Scott, sorry about that. We had a little bit of a hiccup out here right to it. But the last one, the Nuggets at the Clippers, last time I looked, Clippers minus 5.5. Seems as though Kawhi Leonard is in sync. Everybody else is in sync. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I got to tell you right now that I was like, phew. Last night, my biggest play the entire day yesterday was Jokic over 48.5 points, assists, rebounds combined. And I'm sitting there going, don't take him out. Don't take him out. Because, they're getting whacked. And I'm like, please don't take him out. He got to 49 and they took him out and I cashed the ticket. I was like, thank you very much for that half-point win. But Denver's, short on help for the big guy. They canned their coach right before the postseason due to what they called his stubbornness and the fact they were weak on defense. And now look how bad they are in the offensive end. I mean, Denver players not named Jokic made 22 of 63 field goal attempts. That's it, 35%. 5 of 23 from the three-point line. It was Murray and Jokic and nobody else. The Clippers had 6 players in double figures, and 4 of those players scored 19 or more. I think Jokic goes over that points, assist, rebounds again, which is now 49.5 for this game. But I also like Denver in the first half, which is plus 3.5.
Scott, I always appreciate your time, and we will talk to you next week. Enjoy Ashton Genty becoming a Raider there in Las Vegas.
Not bad, not bad. Start carrying that football a little bit lower and quit fumbling, and it'll be great.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
You bet. Well, coming up next, it's our random fact of the day, and then football at 50. It is Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B now on ESPN 620 and on FM at 98.7 HD2. Plus, we're streaming, and if you missed our show, just go to our podcast. We're up at ArizonaSports.com, ArizonaSports.com. All that, much more, coming up next on Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B.
Toyota, right on the corner, right on the price. Right Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
Hope you're having a great Friday afternoon. Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B out here at Wright Toyota. I'm Dan Manuch alongside Jackson Groff. Hope you're doing well. A little couple of random facts here. One for this weekend. Fish won the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame fan vote as the most favorite, followed by Bad Company, Billy Idol, Cyndi Lauper, and Joe Cocker. The inductees will be announced Sunday night on American Idol. You ever listen to Joe Cocker?
I don't even know any of those names that you.
Billy Idol?
Fish, none of them.
Cyndi Lauper?
None.
Yeah, Fish goes way.
Not a rock guy.
Way back, but those are awesome. Bad Company, they were great back in the 70s. Billy Idol, maybe 80-ish, 80s, that time frame. Cyndi Lauper, she goes back to the mid-80s. And then Joe Cocker go way back to the 60s into the 70s. Another random fact for you here, Jax. Michigan beat Stanford 49-0 in the very first Rose Bowl game in 1902. Now, it was so bad that Stanford quit. That's right, Stanford quit in the third quarter, and the Tournament of Roses committee, they canceled the game and only held a parade for the next 13 years.
Wow.
I mean, is that bad? I mean, you imagine a team in the third quarter just literally waving the white towel that we are totally done in reference to all that. So those are your random facts of the day. All right, Connor, give me a little football 50 music here. Let's dive into a few things. Now, we've been talking about this the last couple of weeks.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just say, side note, I love that you play the NFL films.
Oh, absolutely, man.
It gets you in the mood.
Oh, man, are you kidding me? I go back to circa fifth grade when that music comes on, watching NFL film. The fourth in-person college football playoff meeting of 2025 ended with a basic familiar result. No decisions, Jax, on the three biggest issues, creating more pressure to meet an unofficial and perhaps wishful summer deadline of any format changes. Now, they've been talking about this because the judge threw a little bit of a curveball at the group. The three biggest topics include potential seating change for 2025, which would require unanimous decision, right? Possible expansion in format changes for 2026, which the Big Ten and SEC would have control over, and basic governance of contracts. And last but not least, a decision on the 2026 format isn't technically needed until December. However, sources said that everyone involved wants to get it all done by the summer before the 2025 season kickoff. Is that like trying to turn the Titanic in your swimming pool in your backyard?
Oh my gosh. Well, the potential seating change, I'm shocked they haven't came to a decision about, because we saw that in the playoff this year. I think the 1 through 4 seeds need to be the top 4 seeds. I don't have a problem with the conference championship having an automatic bid, because I think that still gives an importance to winning your conference, and I think it definitely holds pride still in the sport, even though that thing's probably going to get eliminated in the next couple of years. Possible expansion already. We just had the 12-team playoff. I do think if it does have more control to the Big Ten and SEC, that's where the whole down the line 2 power conferences we could eventually see later on, if that becomes a thing.
And if that wasn't enough, in Wednesday's meeting was basically upended by U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkins' bombshell order, which was the limitation to the amount of student athletes on a football team in the House settlement. Shortly after the order, the commissioners left the CFP meeting to get on calls with the attorneys and board chairs about the next steps. Basically, what she said is she questioned them on their limits of the total being 105. It went from 125 to 105. The settlement was okay, if the NCAA said we'll get it to 105, and that'll be scholarship. Well, she said time out. I'm not happy with that. You got to figure it out. So what I think she's getting at is that she'd like to take it no limitations with scholarships on top of it. So they got to get that figured out on top of everything else.
So let me ask you. So the question is, they want 105 fully scholarship players, or 125 with walk-ons.
Right
is the debate.
Yes,
keep the walk-ons, save the walk-ons.
I would say
make the team.
I agree.
How are they going to have scholarships for all 105 players?
Well, that was their proposition, and she just said time out. I've got heartburn with that. So y'all got to figure it out. So I think somewhere in the middle lies the truth. You talk about the $1 billion settlement that is with this going on. So college football, just stay tuned, fans, that this is supposed to be resolved. Good luck by midsummer. I don't think it's going to happen.
Because if you have 105 scholarships with the 2 transfer portal window, you give someone a scholarship in January, they could leave in May. That opens up a scholarship that you have to give to somebody by August.
Well, and here's the thing. A lot of players that were preferred walk-ons are leaving and have gone into the transfer portal
5 minutes
based
5
on the
minutes.
105 limit. If they change us back to, I don't know, 110, 150, 125, I'd be interested to see how many of those young men come out of the portal back to the teams.
Well, and that sticks for those players, too, because maybe they're not talented enough to get a scholarship, but they're not going to get a spot on a team because they're only looking for scholarship potential players instead of being a preferred walk-on where, hey, we're going to give a flyer on this guy, not put him on scholarship, and if he performs to the level or exceeds the level, then he can earn a scholarship. So it stinks for those guys, and I know Nebraska this weekend's having their Husker games, which is kind of the guys that are fighting for those last spots on the roster to make the last limited amount of scholarships, the preferred walk-ons, the walk-ons. It's kind of a tryout for them. If they don't make it, they have film to send out to other programs.
Some of the things we like is we look at the back pages of some of the big newspapers back east. The New York Post has got Giants make bold deal for Dart to be QB of future after taking Carter third. It says Jackson of all trades. That one coming from the New York Post. This is from the Daily News. He is a Giant. And then there's Abdul Carter holding up number 1. It says Big Blue grabs Penn State's Carter with number 3 pick, takes Dart at 25. Also has a Jets tab Missouri offensive tackle. Is it Membau? Is that how you say his name?
Membu.
Membu as the offensive tackle. We look on the Chicago Sun-Times. Cole Stun Loveland. Their first round pick is a tight end. I was a little surprised with that.
I love the fit, though.
I mean, I do, but
I
thought Tyler Warren would be the first tight end that'd be picked. Coming off that. And then we scurry down the Boston Herald. There's a way. That's right. Pats land Will Campbell with the number 4 pick. I think there was a lot of questions about his patella tendon.
His arm size.
Was it arm size?
Arm size is the thing with him. Yeah.
Arm size, okay. And then the Dallas Morning News Sports Day says hard habit
3 minutes
to break. Hard habit to break. All right, Connor Collins, you being the Dallas Cowboy fan. You like that pick, big fella?
Oh, yeah. How could I have any issues with that? You go and get one of the most dominant inside offensive linemen in the draft. To be fair, I mean, he's probably one of the top 3 offensive linemen total in this draft. So, yeah, I know it's a little rich to take an interior guy at 12, but you're pairing him next to your boy from K-State there, Cooper Beebe, and then Tyler Smith at that left guard. Brian Schottenheimer, when he got hired, wanted to make an emphasis on running the football. Well, now you got the front 3 to do so. That is a powerful A through B gap.
How about the Washington Post in the sports page when they show Travis Hunter, young and bold. That leads that one from that one there. Let's take a look at what the front page, the back page, front page of the Arizona Republic has. Okay, very first, literacy program gets the parents involved. Some Arizona properties lease off a Doge list. Jackson, I don't see anything.
2 minutes.
No Walter Nolan.
No Walter Nolan.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, you would think the Arizona Republic. I used to get that every morning for many, many years, but I go to azcentralsports.com and get all my that. But the front page Arizona Republic, no go in reference to this Arizona Cardinals.
It's kind of a lost art because that was one of the things, even like when you think about the Super Bowl, after a team wins the Super Bowl and they grab the newspaper and it has them, whether that's the Cardinals win their first Super Bowl or the Eagles win their first Super Bowl, like that's such a signature thing. When a sports thing happens in a town, they have a number or first round pick to put them on the cover. That's embarrassing, Arizona.
You know, it is when you look at the New York Post, it's just the creativity. Jackson of all trades to make that trade and to get him. And, you know, quite frankly, talk about an A+ to get Abdul Carter at number 3 and then get Jackson. Was he number 20? What was he?
25.
25. I think they scratched
1 minute.
As far as I was concerned with both of them. So those are some of the things, but that is our football pictures. We like to enlighten you with some of the back pages that are out there all around the United States of America. Well, coming up, in hour number 3, we take a look at the draft. We'll break down Walter Nolan. They have the 15th pick in the second round. That'll be coming up this evening. Also, what's the pick they have in the third round there,
The 14th pick in the third round, 78th overall.
Cardinals have a chance to get some quality picks. Will they get that home run hitting wide receiver? Will they get that cornerback? Will they get that offensive line. We'll get a chance to break it all down in hour number 3. Also, catch up with former great Arizona State, Arizona Cardinal quarterback Jake Plummer, and former Arizona Cardinals linebacker Rob Fredrickson. They give us his thoughts
10 seconds
on the Cardinals' first-round pick of Walter Nolan. That's all next on Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B, right here on ESPN 620 and 98.7 HD2, live from Wright Toyota.
.20. And now, an on-air sports marketing presentation. It's Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B, now on ESPN 620, 98.7 FM HD2, and streaming live at arizonasports.com. The guys are powered by the law offices of Lerner and Rowe. In a wreck and need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And now on your ESPN station in Phoenix, ESPN 620, Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B.
With the 16th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, Mississippi.
That's right. Walter Nolan is the 16th pick for the Arizona Cardinals draft. Welcome in. Hour number 3 of Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B. Dan Manuch alongside Jackson Groff. We've got Connor Collins back at the fort mining all of the fine technical details that we go through. And if you didn't get it yet, you had Walter Nolan, the young man out of Ole Miss, the 16th pick overall. So many accolades about the young man. Just a couple of little tendencies that some people had mentioned was his motor, taking plays off, hand size, arm size. I got to tell you what, Jax, watching this young man, watching all the footage, I saw him continue to come. And everything that I saw in him continue to come, it wasn't as if it was an issue with some of the negatives about one Walter Nolan. It was just maybe concern about this young man and how that's going to translate coming into the National Football League.
Yeah, and I think he's got tremendous size. He's bigger than both of his comps, Ed Oliver, and he mentioned being compared to Aaron Donald. He's 3 inches taller, 15 pounds heavier, had 14 and a half tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks last season for Ole Miss, came from A&M before that, was the number 1 player in high school. So he's got all the intangibles, the talent in front of him. But he's got tremendous motor range. We played sound earlier, Gannon talking about he's a quiet guy. I think this is a guy in an organization alongside Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson. They'll be able to get him right. Might be a little slow for Arizona Cardinals fans for him to make an impact immediately, but this is a guy 2-3 years down the line that could potentially be an anchor in this defense.
Connor, if you get a chance, we had a soundbite about Jonathan Gannon. Feels he'd be a 3 technique guy or a 5 technique guy, the kind of individual that Rawls as a defensive coordinator would like to play him. Because quite frankly, he talked earlier about how he
ready for you
compares himself to an Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald was one of those true nose tackles or 3 technique guy, was mostly inside, either tackle, didn't play much outside. Here's Jonathan Gannon talking about where exactly they're going to play this young man.
Correct. But he does play up and down that line. Like there's in passing situations, they got him over the center. He's playing a little bit of 4-eye, a little bit of 5. He can, I think he's going to be able to do all of it. We got to see when he gets here and how he fits into the room. You know what I mean? To make sure that we do the best thing for the defense first. And then the best thing for him as it relates to the other guys too. But I do think he's a multiple position guy, and it's going to be cool to see how he can impact games.
I think the one thing when you look at this defensive line, Jax, when you look at the depth of this defensive line of the Arizona Cardinals, and you say to yourself, okay, look, they've got quite a few guys there. Matter of fact, they've got some great depth. And I think more than anything, I don't know if the Cardinals will have to, but they may have to make some cuts with the individuals that they have at that defensive line. Obviously, you've got your veterans in Josh Sweat, Walter Nolan. Basically, is kind of like someone already plugged in as a first-team guy. Do they start Calais Campbell? Do they start Walter Nolan? You got Dalvin Tomlinson, and then you have Justin Jones. So when you look at those 4 or 5 guys, a couple things you can think about, they can interchange those individuals. You saw Rawls last year. He rotated a lot of his starters in and out. I think a lot of that was more based on giving guys a break or just trying to create a pass rush, just trying to create a push on the quarterbacks. But the one thing that a Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell will hold is the accountability factor for a young rookie, Walter Nolan.
100%. And it's the same style as the Eagles. And it makes sense with Gannon and Rawls both coming from that system. We saw in the Super Bowl rotating defensive linemen, and it only makes an offensive lineman's job harder when you got fresh bodies rotating in all the time, especially that play at the level of a Walter Nolan or of a Calais Campbell. Even looking at the depth chart and slowly seeing guys like Zaven Collins, who had their opportunity to start, and now are going to be second, third rotational guys. How does B.J. Ojulari come off the injury? Guys like L.J. Collier and Bill All Nichols are kind of be on the chopping block, like you mentioned. Not a lot of spots on this roster that they kind of bolster the defensive line, have a lot of guys, and prioritize that versus some other needs. It's going to be interesting to see who makes the roster.
How about this one? Riddle me this, Batman. Darius Robinson going into his second year. What do you play? Maybe 3 or 4 games at that.
I'd almost say this is going to be his rookie year, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it is. But I mean, right now when you see he's relegated behind Justin Jones, but I mean that's a pretty solid depth when you look at it. You mentioned Zaven Collins. Whether Calais Campbell starts or not, I got to believe Campbell will start off initially, and they'll work Walter Nolan into it. You know, why wouldn't you? He's a first-round pick. Then you got, we talked about Robinson. You talked about Ojulari, Ben Still. I mean, that's a good group of guys. But, again, how about Ojulari? How about Nichols? Look at L.J. Collier. You think of those 3 or 4 guys, it's going to be some great competition coming in here to the OTAs, then the mini camps. But where the rubber is going to meet the road is those 3 preseason games to sort out who's going to be your starters, what's your starting rotation. To your point, Jax, what's going to be the rotation as far as running guys in and out. And as far as the linebacking core is concerned, I just wish that they would. Maybe he doesn't want to, but they would re-sign Kazir White. I really felt he was that true quarterback. That being aside, this is a pretty good core nucleus of improvement to start the 2025 season.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think a couple more needs as we look to the second round right now. The Cardinals, who hold the 15th overall pick in the second round, the 47th pick, we could kind of all of us rattle back and forth which way they should go. I think with Will Johnson slipping down to the second round, I think he's going to be going off the board too early for the Cardinals to get. Like, look for the Raiders or maybe even a team like the Saints to go and grab him in the second round. A guy to me, and he didn't take a top 30 visit for the Arizona Cardinals, but he's a local kid coming off of an injury, a smart kid out of Brophy, went to Notre Dame, would be Benjamin Morrison, a guy that was supposed to be a projected first-round pick, had an early injury with Notre Dame, but he's a lengthy corner. He started as a true freshman for Notre Dame. That's a guy to me, and I think they need to address a corner, add more depth in that room. So for me, at the second-round pick, get a local guy. I like Ben Morrison there. Monty Ossenfort went out to him in his private workout. He said that he looked well. He's moving well. He's starting to recover at a rapid speed. I like Ben Morrison.
The only thing I think about, if there's any question mark at all for a kid that's coming back off of something like that, I mean, I saw the highlights the other day. I think Channel 12 was out there showing him, and he looked really good. It's just at the next level, it's just that much quicker. I would have no heartburn for the Cardinals to look at the best. I mean, if it's an outstanding cornerback or it's a wide receiver who I feel is who can catch the ball, but it's got that home run speed. He's got to have home run speed. They already have enough possession guys. They already have enough. You get the tight end, got enough possession guys. You're pretty good across the board. I got to believe they got to look at maybe one of the fastest, if not one of the top fastest wide receivers if you're going to go to take something over the top. Or I'd have no more heartburn, as I mentioned, offensive line, corner, wide receiver. I have another edge guy. I have no heartburn with that.
So with wide receivers, I'll throw a bunch of. We had a big body 6'4" guy in Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. You could also go the route of Trey Harris, 6'2", 205 from Ole Miss, again at the second round pick. Luther Burden could go early in the second round, but if he were to fall, best available. This is a guy that was 6 foot 206 and was supposed to be a first round pick, a top 10 pick. He could fall to the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Knoll, 5'10", 194 out of Iowa State, a speedster in the slot too. Jack Besh, a possession wide receiver who can take the top off, 6'1", 214 out of TCU. And then the edge rushers, like you mentioned, two guys that also took top 30 visits, JTT from Ohio State and Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. So there's a lot of options the Cardinals can go. I think the second and third round, Manuch, didn't see a lot of skilled players in the first round, a lot of linemen, a lot of guys that fell that the Arizona Cardinals could take advantage of.
Who is, did they have their 40 times there with them off the side there?
Oh, man, I don't think they do.
Who might be, I mean, you've watched a lot of these. Who might be the fastest individual out of those 25 different receivers you rattle off there? I would say because I want a home run hitter.
I mean, Connor, we can go back and forth. I think Kyle Williams out of Washington State, to me, if you want a guy that's fast, 5'11", 190, a big play threat that's good at getting open.
Okay.
That's what the Cardinals need, is a free release guy that has good release moves, that can get open, that's explosive. I would say Kyle Williams out of Washington State is my first pick for wide receiver with that specific category that you mentioned. Connor?
Yeah, when I look at this, kind of, if I could interest you, Manuch, I know you want the home run speed, take it over the top. But what if I told you of a wide receiver who had the home run ability? I know Jack said the name, but it's Luther Burden. This isn't a guy who's necessarily going to take you over the top, but he's almost like Deebo Samuel in a wide receiver body, where everybody jokes around how Deebo Samuel's a running back in a wide receiver body. This guy, Luther Burden, he's compact, but when he gets the ball in his hand, he's hard to grab. This is somebody who's quick. He can get down the field. The other person, I think, is Jalen Knoll. There's two wide receivers coming out of Iowa State. One of them happens to be Jaden Higgins, who was the 6'4", go up and get it possession type of receiver. The other one, Jalen Knoll, he's a little bit shorter. He comes in around 5'10", weighs about 195 pounds, give or take. But that's somebody who's really good at creating space, getting himself open. One other guy I want to throw out there, he's kind of fallen off a little bit, Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon. really quick, gadgety guy. Didn't do the best on his 40-yard dash, but there wasn't a single person who could stand there and run a one-on-one route with him during his Senior Bowl practice.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see which way Jonathan Gannon or in that case Monty Austin Ford looks at, because they were in unison with Walter Nolan. When you listen to the presser and when Walter Nolan spoke to the media here about 1 o'clock, hopefully we'll have a chance to get some of his sound coming up before we get out of here and just get some of his thoughts. But some of the things I think of is everybody's on the same page, so be it. If that person that they like falls to them and he's there, it could be best available need, best available, or the top athlete.
I think what's interesting, too, is I don't know how much merit you take in top 30 visits, but there's not a lot of wide receivers that are left in the second or third round that have taken top 30 visits with the Cardinals. There's a lot of edge and cornerback. So I don't know if that means anything for how they prioritize what need matters to them in the second and third round, but I think that's something to know
You guys are clear to
as we
toss.
look with their first pick they had with Walter Nolan, who was a top 30 visit as well.
Look at you, the sleuth over there, kind of
trying to do some research.
Yeah, some teams tipping their hand at which way they're going to be going. Well, coming up, we catch up with former Sun Devil, Cardinal, and Broncos great quarterback Jake Plummer. We'll talk to Jake about some of the things, his draft day, Cam Ward, and all the above. That's all next on Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 98.7 HD2 as we are live from Wright Toyota.
202-977-1900. And now on your ESPN station in Phoenix, ESPN 620, Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B.
Come on.
That was so funny. He said, come on.
NFL draft. The Tennessee
He was getting booed like a mother.
As the first selection of the 2025 draft, that being one Cam Ward. Well, a guy that was picked in the second round by the Arizona Cardinals going way back to 1997. Great career at Arizona State University. Great career with the Cardinals and Denver Broncos. That being one Jake Plummer now joining us here on the right Turtle Guest side. Jake, it's Manuch alongside Jax. Can you recollect where Jake Plummer was and when you got that call from the Cardinals as that second round pick go way back to 1997?
Yes, of course, and it's good talking to you guys. I appreciate you reaching out. I always it is a real thrill to watch. I did actually watch a little bit of the draft yesterday to see the emotions of some of these young men that are, right there. This is their dream, and now they've just been selected. Doesn't mean it's happening, 100%, but they're now getting their opportunity to go to the top level. And what a thrill for the kids, their families, everybody involved. And I can remember exactly where I was. I was at, I believe, the Phoenician or the Biltmore, I think the Biltmore. And we had a room. Lee Steinberg was my agent. He was representing me, and then Derek Rogers and Juan Roque, and Dave Dunn was there. And I played golf that morning because I knew I wasn't going to be a first rounder when they used to have 15 minutes on the clock for each team. It takes a while. Mm-hmm. And I was tired. I'd been having fun with my family, and I was like, I'm going to go lay down for a little bit. So I went and laid down and got tapped on the shoulder, woke up, and Dave Dunn said, "Hey, man, you're an Arizona Cardinal." So that's when I wiped the slobber away and said, all right, right on, cool.
Jake, it's interesting. A lot of guys ask me, they're like, Dan, did you know if Buffalo was going to pick you? Now, well, when I thought back on the workouts, the All-Star game, the Olympia Challenge Bowl, we had the Pac-10 versus the Big 8 All-Stars. I thought back, they were probably the most intriguing. They asked me the most questions. They worked me out the most, but I never thought, that would lead to it. Did you feel the Cardinals would be the ones choosing you? Did you have any inclination at all?
None at all. Nope. I the combine and the interviews, I don't recall every team that I talked with. I know I had a lot of interviews, and I just, I carried myself post Rose Bowl. I think back to how almost insane it was that, I was one of the top quarterbacks coming out in the draft, but I still went and played at the Shrine, played at the Senior Bowl, put my body into these positions that, these kids nowadays, they pull themselves out of their team that they've been with for years, or maybe a year. If it's a bowl game and it isn't worth it, to save their bodies for the league. And so I was just wanting to really put out who I was, what I was about as a leader, a player, and I loved the game. And I think that really helped me actually playing in those. And the Cardinals were not on my radar at all. Little did I know I had a little bird back, down there in Tempe off of Warner, Larry Centers. That was he was probably my biggest fan on the Cardinals, because I know when they drafted me and I met him the first time, he told me, he's like,
yes,
I'm glad they drafted you, man. I wanted you here. And, knowing that and feeling that love, and obviously, the ability to stay there in town with already a fan base that was to watch me progress at the next level, as they watched me at ASU go from a freshman to a sophomore, junior, and whoa, this is the final year, this team that's established here, and me as the leader, and the things we did as a team. I think they were excited to see what could happen too, to see what we could do, with the Cardinals, a team that hadn't done a lot in the Valley. They hadn't been to the playoffs yet since they'd come to the Valley, and I hadn't won a playoff game in 49 years. And, the rest is history, of course, but getting that.
Yeah, we can do. I got tons of different stuff here for Nolan. Let me see.
Or animal or something else. I just wanted to be in an NFL team, on a team, in the locker room with the ball in my hand with an opportunity to hopefully get out on the field and play.
I have like his first impressions of JG and Rawless. We got how his feelings was getting on the plane. What made this scheme a good fit at Ole Miss. Talking about him having a big heart. Yeah, let's do that then.
Growth of the NFL, close to being a $25 billion a year business is what I think. If my buddy and I, we've done some calculations and correct. They do their research, so the kid obviously is going to be an impact player. And this day and age, with the amount of passing, if you can make it uncomfortable for even the best passers, as we've seen with, even Mahomes, when he's not comfortable back there, it gets a little more difficult for him. So having a guy coming off the end, if he's worth it to be that high of a pick, I'm sure they made a good decision, and it can help their defense. As a quarterback myself, I never was upset by them drafting defense because a good defense gets me the ball back.
I also have Walter Nolan talking about when he stopped listening to what people think about him.
Oh, man, I threw a pick. That's okay. My D's going to get it back.
So I can do those two. The
potential in a quarterback and an offense, and even
we'll stick with the big heart.
They say it, defense wins championships. So hopefully it's a good pick. If the kid has the drive, desire, and heart, and the effort involved to be a good player, then hopefully he turns out to be a good pick for the Cardinals.
Jake Plummer joining us here on the right to the guest line. Jake, you see Cam Ward is the first pick of the draft, and then Jackson Dart gets picked late in the first round. But a guy you've watched the last couple of years up there in Denver and Boulder area, Shedeur Sanders, he's fallen out of the first round. I think he may get picked here by Cleveland here in the first pick of the second round or maybe the third pick. But when you watched his game and figure out why he might have dropped, but just his game overall, what impressed you about watching Shedeur Sanders, and what do you think may have held him up from going in the first round?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, there's been a tendency for NFL teams to overdraft at the quarterback position, not wanting to miss out on a certain player. This year's draft, of course, is not stacked like last year's was with the potential and the candidates. Although we were being told, and the narrative was such that Shedeur was that guy and going to be a top pick. How much of that was actually coming from the brass and the people making the decisions, you don't know. Today's athletes, a lot of it is about self-promotion. So what he's done really well is make people aware of who he is. His skill set on the field, I know that his knowledge is deep. He knows the game. And if you know the game, that's huge, because knowledge of offense, knowledge of reads and progressions and protections is paramount at the next level. So he's got to jump on that, being, that his dad has been coaching. He's been right there in it. The stock that he's coming from, one of the greatest athletes to ever step on the planet, in Deion Sanders. He's got abilities. I don't know about as far as like arm strength, but I'm not sure that, Josh Allen's are rare these days. Guys and Aaron Rodgers that can just fling it wherever. Being on time and knowing offense and knowing progressions and being able to anticipate, if he can get that part down, I see him having a decent career. He can throw the ball anywhere. He can move in the pocket. He isn't as athletic as you would think, making plays out of the pocket. But I think he's got the ability to play at the next level. And obviously we'll see. It's hard when you go to a team that may be struggling continuously. And I think that's an epidemic of the QB overdraft syndrome that happens, where these teams that perennially are tough, like don't make the playoffs, they draft in the top 15. They waste a pick on a possible good QB candidate instead of getting a gangbuster, badass, potential all-pro defensive end that's going to get 15 sacks a season day one. Then they're stuck there again the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year, while the Kansas Cities and the Broncos and the perennial teams that win all the time, they get a draft whatever best players available. They don't got to worry about it because they got their guy at QB. So I don't know what's going to happen with Shedeur. I think, he's got faith in himself. He's got a dad that is phenomenal human being that can push belief beyond the limits for these young men, which is awesome to watch. I wish him well at the next level. It's the crazy thing, guys, is that he's coming into the league multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
It's not like you're coming off a scholarship checks and like hoping to get some food. And like when I did my first signing post draft, I made $8,000 and I was hyped. I had $8,000 at the bank. I had my buddies, hey, let's go get some cash at the ATM. Like, look, I got 7,200 now. Where are we going tonight? Like these guys are millionaires.
Yes.
They're coming out already claiming themselves as legendary and this, that, and the other. And it's just like, the game has changed. You come out with certain attitudes back in the day, you're going to get your ass sat down by these veterans. That was just how it was. And I don't know if that's going on so much now. Is that a good thing? It may be a good thing. Hey, you're Rook, come in. How can you help us? Instead of us, hazing you and putting you down and making life hard on you, how can you get on the field now, immediately, and help this team win a championship? That's really a cool progression if you think about it.
Real quick, Jake, we got about a minute left. Do you anticipate Cam Scadaboo's name getting called tonight?
Oh my goodness! If it doesn't, then there's something wrong with the NFL. This kid can play. I don't think the Cardinals need a running back.
Man.
The Denver Broncos, they could use a running back. And I know the Cards, I think, are a few picks before the Bronx in the second round. I'm hoping that the Broncos swoop him up. And I think if the Cardinals could, they'd be foolish not to get him. I think he's a tone setter that is a rare, comes around once in a while, that, whatever he's doing, his level is such that it's contagious. You can't help but go and get it done. And he can catch, he can block, and he can run. And I'm hoping he lands at the right team that can utilize his skill set.
Hey, before I let you go, just real quick, give us that site for Umbo, all the great stuff you've got, the great products, and what's the special for the weekend. So lay that out there for our listeners real quick there, Jake.
Yeah, go to getumbo.com, join up, and get our newsletter. We got good stuff coming out, information about how this can help you, whether you're active or wanting to get active. This is we've formulated these mushrooms and these products to help people get out and get up on their feet and get moving again and feel good. So check us out. If you subscribe, there's a discount. And that's what we're doing, man. Just trying to help people reach their potential. And I'm excited, for these young men to get to go try to achieve their dream at the next level. It's always kind of rekindles. It's been 28 years since I got drafted. Like, holy smokes.
I got to tell you what, hey, 50 years old now, Jake. You look good for an old man. I got to tell you what, man, all the umbo and all the activity. Hey, always a pleasure to have you. I really appreciate it. We will talk to you soon.
Awesome. You guys have a great day. Thanks for having me on the show.
And so that's a great Jake Plummer. You can tweet him at Jake Snakes on Twitter. Well, coming up, we'll take a look at the Cardinals' first-round pick in Walter Nolan. And where do the Cardinals go next with the 15th pick in the second round? That's all next on Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 and 98.7 HD2 from right.
It's now time for your Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B's ESPN 620 Sports Update. I'm Connor Collins. Tonight, the D-backs open a 3-game home series against the Atlanta Braves. Zach Gallen, 1-3 with a 5.6 ERA, takes the mound for Arizona, while Atlanta counters with Chris Sale, currently with an 0-2 record and 6.17 ERA. The Braves have won 5 of their last 6, while Arizona looks to bounce back after consecutive extra inning losses. First pitch is at 6:40 p.m. at Chase Field, and you can catch that action on 98.7 FM, Arizona Sports. The Arizona Cardinals take Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan with the 16th overall pick, and tonight they will be picking at 47 and 78, respectively, in rounds 2 and 3. This ESPN 620 update is brought to you by Wright Toyota. They have the right deal for everyone. Pre-owned certified vehicles under $15,000, and their used vehicle inventory is backed with a 1-year, 15,000-mile maintenance program.
It's Friday, and the guys are live from Right Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Right Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
Just a short way to sum it up, if I trust you, if I ride with you, if you my dog, we locked in, I'll do whatever for you. I'll give you this shirt off my back right here.
First round draft pick Walter Nolen at his press conference this afternoon over at the Cardinals complex, talking about his heart and how he's looking to play each and every down. And he's got some of those misnomers that have been out there about one Walter Nolen. Well, a guy that was drafted going way back, not too far back, 1994. He was the first round pick of the then Los Angeles/Oakland Raiders, that being Rob Fredrickson, now joining us here on the Right Toyota guest line. Rob Manuch alongside with Jax. Go back to 1994. I imagine it was April of 1994, that very first round, 22nd pick. A lot of memories flood through as you're watching the draft yesterday in the first round.
Yeah, it was a great day. Yeah, I actually was up at Michigan State, and I drove home to watch the draft with my family. I pull into the driveway, and my dad's got a giant satellite dish in the driveway. I said, Dad, what the heck is this all about? And he said, well, only the first round is on regular cable. So I was like, gee, thanks for the vote of confidence, Dad.
That's great news. Hey, we just had Jake Plummer on. You were with the Cardinals from 1999 through 2002, and he was talking about his any inkling at all that the Cardinals would draft him. To draft you? Did they show a lot of interest and maybe tip you off?
None. I thought I was getting drafted by the pick right after the Raiders, the Dallas Cowboys. We had a Dallas Cowboys scout in our house watching the draft with us. Whenever a team would call, I'd relay that information back to the scout. Scout would call back to Jerry down in Dallas. So I thought it was a done deal. I thought I was going to Dallas, and I had never really talked to the Raiders.
It's interesting because I know a lot of guys that had no clue when they got drafted. For me, the Bills I talked to them maybe 3, 4, 5 times. They worked me out pretty extensively. And you know what, Rob, at that place, we were coming up. We didn't care where we went. If there's a team in Siberia or Alaska or wherever. But when I thought back on it, they spent a lot of time with me, just kind of making sure I'd have no problem playing in Buffalo. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'll play anywhere. I thought that some of the questioning about would you like to come here, it didn't throw me off. I'm like, do you not realize we'll go play anywhere in those days?
Yeah, it's coaches, front office personnel, they are constantly worried about the mental makeup of the potential player that they're going to draft. They want to make sure that player is locked into football, loves football, doesn't have a problem with location. If you're in Green Bay or Indianapolis or wherever, they want to make sure they're getting somebody that's singularly focused on playing football and winning. And so, they ask those questions, but it seems so obvious to guys like me and you that, yeah, of course I'll play anywhere. Come on.
He's Rob Fredrickson, former Raider, Lions, and Cardinals linebacker. You can tweet him at rfredrickson59. All right, watching Walter Nolen, what was your initial reaction when you saw the Cardinals pick him? I got to believe once a couple of top offensive linemen were gone. Was there any surprise to you?
What was surprising to me was I never thought Walter Nolen would be there at 16. I thought there'd been a lot of talk that his stock was really rising and he would have been gone by then. But the way the draft kind of unfolded in that first round, you saw McMillan go high. I think he went 8th or 9th. That was higher than I had thought. And then the defensive tackle from Michigan, Grant, I didn't think he'd be going, 10th, 12th, wherever he went. I didn't think he'd go that high. So all of a sudden now some quality players start falling back. And Monty Ossenfort's sitting there at 16. Walter Nolen is available. I mean, that you could see the excitement on Jonathan Gannon's face when they locked in that pick. I mean, that just that first round worked out perfectly for the Arizona Cardinals.
How do you see him fitting in this defense of Nick Rawlis? Do you kind of see him taking a step back and learning from Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson, or is he kind of a plug-and-play guy immediately being, a mid-first-round pick?
I think he's an immediate impact player. Obviously he's going to have to learn the playbook, learn the defense, learn what how offensive linemen block in this league. That's going to be an adjustment, but he'll learn on the fly. This is not a guy you're going to sit on the end of the bench and he's going to get cobwebs. This is a guy that's going to be playing a lot of reps. He's that disruptive. He plays on the offensive side of the line of scrimmage. He's a penetrator. He's going to have to learn that sometimes that aggression and that penetrating style of play, offenses can take advantage of it with trap plays and certain blocking schemes. They can take advantage of your aggressiveness. He'll have to learn that. He'll have to understand that you got to play the run and then go to play the pass. But I couldn't be more excited with the way he plays and just the motor that he plays with. You hear some negative talk about consistency and does he really love football? What's interesting is the mentor that he's probably going to listen to and watch and learn from the most is a guy named Calais Campbell. And that was the knock on Calais Campbell when he was drafted. He fell to the second round out of Miami. He was a first-round talent, but they said he lacked a motor. Maybe he doesn't love football. Well, 18, 19 years later, here's Calais Campbell now teaching the young guys how to play defense.
So when you turn your attention today for the Cardinals, 2 picks, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, what needs do you think they need to attack for both of those picks, or any prospects that stick in your mind for the 15th pick in the second round and the 14th pick in the third?
Yeah, I told
you guys are good to start wrapping after this.
So that if your hand's not in the dirt, I'm not drafting you. So I'm going to stick with that, and I think maybe they look at to see if they can find a valued offensive lineman, particularly guard, but I'd certainly take a tackle. If they can find a good offensive lineman in the second round, I think they go that direction. I'd also look at cornerback, wide receiver. I think is a position that they could look to in these next couple of rounds. You could get some quality starters in the second, third round. So I think those positions are really the area that they might focus on. Now, there's so much depth in this draft in terms of the edge rush position. There's still some guys that are first-round talent that haven't been drafted yet. If they get a guy that, they have a high first-round draft grade on, for their second-round pick, I wouldn't be surprised if they go in that direction.
Rob, we appreciate the time on a Friday afternoon. We'll catch up with you next week, get your thoughts on the overall draft for this Arizona Cardinals team. Only 6 picks and 5 more to go, but we appreciate your time. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, guys, go Cards.
Said Rob Fredrickson joining us here on the Right Toyota guest line. You can tweet him at rfredrickson59, and Rob is courtesy of Right Toyota. The right price, the right selection. Right Toyota in Scottsdale on Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard. They have the right deal for everyone. Right now, check out all the inventory on pre-certified vehicles under $15,000. All you have to do is go to righttoyota.com. That's righttoyota.com. Well, coming up, it's our Learn and Row one call. That's all. We take a look at what's on tap, and we give you the results of our State Farm Roofing. It's your call question of the day. You're listening to Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B. Now on ESPN 620 on FM at 98.7 HD2. Plus, we are also streaming. If you missed our show, our podcast, just go to arizonasports.com. That's arizonasports.com.
It's the Lerner and Rowe One Call That's All call of the day. If you're looking for a full-service law firm, just make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. Lerner and Rowe, voted Arizona's best law firm.
Yeah, he's got a huge heart. It was awesome in the pre-draft process, getting to know him. And I don't know what narratives are out there or anything like that. I make up my own mind. And this guy's a Cardinal, 1,000%. So I'm glad we got to add him.
That's right. That's head coach Jonathan Gannon talking about Nolan as a Cardinal 1,000%. As we listen to our Lerner and Rowe One Call That's All. And Reg, need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And always at lernerandrowe.com. They can help. Get a free consultation again. One call, that's all. 602-977-1900. I think that the vetting process, hearing all the things coming out of Walter Nolan and this Arizona Cardinals team, they were convinced watching the tape, because Jonathan Gannon said that several times last night. Have you watched the tape? They're convinced that they got their guy at number 16.
Yeah, and I think it's rewarding as a fan base. If he's the number one guy on their board, that's what their plan was heading in, was to get Walter Nolan. Fell to them, and courtesy of some other teams picking tight ends and running backs and other offensive linemen, he was able to get his way down. I saw some draft analysts, even Todd McShay, he actually likes Walter Nolan more than Mason Graham, who was picked 5th overall. So that's kind of a comparison. If you want to compare later on who kind of won between the Browns at 5 getting Mason Graham or Walter Nolan there at 16. I love the fit. He seems like a guy that's going to be all for his team. I love that quote that we played earlier, that he's going to, like, if someone needed a shirt in the organization, he would give his shirt up. That's the kind of guy he is.
Take a look at what's on tap, presented by Roc and Manuch Amber, made by Dos Equis. Tonight, 6:40, the Braves at Diamondbacks. It'll be right here on the radio at 98.7 TV. It'll be D-backs TV. It'll be on Channel 12 tonight, as a matter of fact. Channel 12. Also, Cox Channel 34. Tomorrow, 5 o'clock, 5:10, first pitch Braves at the Diamondbacks. It'll be on 98.7. In D-backs TV, Cox Channel 34. Sunday, it'll be a 1:10 start time. Braves at the Diamondbacks. It'll be on 98.7 TV. D-backs TV will be Cox Channel 34. So that'll all be going on this weekend. We take a look at the Diamondbacks. They've lost 2 back-to-back extra innings in both of them, as the bullpen is somewhat imploded. You got Zach Gallen on the bump tonight going against Sale, the Cy Young Award winner last night. As the Atlanta Braves, they're in town for a 3-game set. They have won 6 out of the last 10. So this Arizona Diamondbacks team is going to have to get their act together, at least for the weekend. Let's get to our State Farm Roofing It's Your Call question of the day for a free quote, repair, installation. Head to state40roofing.com and follow them on social media by searching hashtag #SexyRoofStatus. And if you want to vote, just go to @Roc and Manuch on Twitter or X. Who is the best undrafted player, not a QB? Is it, number 1, Wes Welker, wide receiver, came out in 2004? Is it Rod Smith, former outstanding Hall of Fame receiver for Denver Broncos, came out in 1994? James Harrison, outside linebacker, came out in 2002? Or Jonathan Randall, defensive tackle for the Minnesota Vikings, came out in 1990. Again, just go to @Roc and Manuch on X.
So we have a 3-way tie at the top. Wes Welker, James Harrison, and John Randall, all at 28.6%, followed by Rod Smith at 14.3%. So we have to break the tie.
Okay.
We each get a vote. I'm voting Wes Welker.
You're voting Wes Welker. I'm going Jonathan Randall. John Randall was the guy that came out. Matter of fact, did nothing but special teams for a couple years. Next thing you know, he's one of the top sack leaders of all time. Goes to the Hall of Fame. That's tough. I mean, when you think about it, every one of those guys was impactful. But Jonathan Randall, talk about a high motor guy. Down in and down out. That is my choice. And again, just go to @Roc and Manuch on Twitter. All right.
Oh, we got to ask Connor's opinion.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Connor.
Connor,
Who'd you vote for?
Who did you vote for?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do any help splitting up the tie here. I went with James Harrison.
I guess it's a 3-way tie.
You know what I mean? A guy who we got to see with that incredible, what was it, like the interception off the shoulder pad all the way back to the house. I mean, just an all-time great player there for that Pittsburgh Steeler, and truly one of the scariest defensive players. As an offensive tackle, you did not want to see him lining up against you.
All right, so round 2, round 3 for the Arizona Cardinals. You take a look at it. I look for my preference would be I'd want to go get as we just heard Rob Fredrickson talking about. I'd want to go get the best offensive lineman, offensive guard that's in this draft, or being a little selfish, be the ex-quarterback I have. I want that home run hitting wide receiver. I want either one. I want to take somebody can take the roof off, take the top off, blow the roof off the stadium, or if you're not comfortable, who's that best offensive guard that's left on the board?
I agree with you. I want wide receiver. I just don't know if that's how the Arizona Cardinals are going to prioritize that in the second round. I do think it might be a toss-up between best available corner they have on their board and best available edge on their board. I don't know where the offensive line stands. I do think they believe in Isaiah Adams, and maybe they'll add some more offensive linemen in free agency. But my heart says I want receiver, but my brain says that they're going to lean towards defense, unfortunately.
And what about the third round?
Third round, I think there's got to be at least a receiver tonight.
I would hope.
At second or third round, there has to be a receiver. I agree with you. I think if you take a step back and you look at the receiver room, we love Michael Wilson. I think he's a depth guy moving forward, but he's not that home run hitter. He doesn't have that over-the-top speed like you mentioned. Greg Dortch does, kind of the jet sweep. They didn't really use him as much as they did last year. Maybe they got to adjust that in 2025. I Luther Burden, like Connor mentioned earlier, if he would have fallen, I would say him. Kyle Williams out of Washington State, but I agree, Manuch. I think they got to go out and get
and the reason why, before we get your picks here, Connor, I just think that you got Marvin Harrison on one side and another home run hitter on the other side. There's got to be a threat. You got to take double coverage.
You got to relieve the pain
and
stuff off of Marvin, especially him. I saw that in training camp. Added some weight, which is great for Marvin. He's got to get a lot stronger because he got bullied last year. In credit to him, he had a lot of double coverage, but you're right. They got to relieve some of the pressure off.
All right, Mr. Dallas Cowboy offensive tackle. Which way are you leaning in the second and third round for the Cardinals?
So I think we're all probably in that same general area. I would love to see them get some type of playmaker, and I'm not one to say that it has to be a over-the-top speed type of wide receiver. I like somebody who is able to make contested catches. And I know they have that, right? That's what Marvin Harrison's supposed to be. But Luther Burden would be my pick. Somebody who slipped a little bit, a guy who plays bigger than his size, but he's able to make people miss. He reminds me of that yak ability of CeeDee Lamb, somebody like Deebo Samuel. I'd love to see if the Cardinals could get somebody like that. And then if you look, like you said, in that second round or in that third round there, this is a really deep cornerback clash. I think there's going to be some guys you take a look at. Parrish out of K-State, Manuch, your alma mater, that could be someone to keep an eye out for. So I'd like to see them maybe attack that, let's say, the skill positions today. We're taking a wide receiver in the first or in the second round. We're taking a DB in the third round.
And then one of the local products I've been training since about the 8th grade, Tyler Shuck. I look at Tyler, and I love to see him go in the second round. Very deserving, as I had mentioned. I felt he was the best NFL-ready quarterback coming out of this draft. I don't know, Jax, where do you think he might end up? I mean, you think second or third round, because they'll be going both rounds tonight. Anywhere in particular you hint that he might be going?
Yeah, I think it depends. So if you talk about quarterback-needy teams that can still use a quarterback, I look at the Browns at the first pick in the second round. They also have the fourth pick in the second round. If they do not like Shador, I would say Tyler Shuck there to the Browns. Now, you training him and the Arizona ties, I kind of wouldn't want him to go there because of the bad history they do have at quarterbacks outside of Joe Flacco, what he did a couple years ago. Other than that, Manuch, I'd say the Saints is a team to look out for. And then,
I would agree.
And then maybe the Seahawks.
Minute and a half.
So many second, third round picks. Maybe he's a backup under Darnold. Where would you say, as a guy that's trained him, where would you want to see him go?
You know what? I also think that there may be a needed insurance policy in Miami. I think that's something there with Tua, with his concussion, that he's had the last several years. I think Seattle. You talked about Seattle. Might be one of those as well too. There's several locations when you really stop and think about where he could end up. But I think that's one of the areas where he end up. Does Shador Sanders go early in the second round?
I'm going to say he goes third round. What do you say, Connor?
Ooh, I don't know. You got me scared after Shefty saying he might be sliding.
Hey, special thanks, Jax. Great job today. Connor, you did a great job. Also, special thanks to Eric Williams, NFC beat writer, NFC West beat writer, that kind of broke down all things going on in reference to the NFC West. Jake Plummer. They're from Jake Plummer, and talking about his
seconds.
draft days and also what he thinks about Shedeur Sanders in the draft and the Arizona Cardinals. Scott Spreitzer and Rob Fredrickson, you just heard him in his thoughts on Walter Nolan as the number 1 pick for the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of doubt about his heart. He felt no doubt that this guy's got a definite motor. For all the folks out here at Ride Toyota, I'm Dan Manucci. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. We know you have a choice. We always appreciate you taking the time to listen to Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B each and every day from 1